All right, we're all set to go? All right, I would like to open this April 2nd, 2020 Murray City Planning Commission meeting. And this evening we have with us myself, Phil Markham, I'm the chair. Scott Woodbury is the vice chair. Marin Patterson is here in person at City Hall, as is Lisa Mokevich. Online participating, we have Travis Ney, Sue Wilson, and Ned Hacker. So all of our members are here this evening, and we appreciate that. Staff on hand this evening assisting us is Jared Hall, Zach Smallwood, and Susan Nixon, and they will be presenting different items to us this evening. And normally I go through a list of do's and don'ts for our audience here to silence your phones and so forth, but since that's not appropriate tonight, we'll dispense with that. And we'll just mention that the meeting is being recorded, and we will go through each agenda item, and we will have a presentation by staff regarding that agenda item, and then after that, we will have commission discussion and a motion to approve or deny for the agenda item that is on tonight. We have received several comments by email prior to the meeting tonight for various agenda items, and where appropriate, we will read those into the record. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the ones that we received several days before the meeting are already part of the record, and we have received a couple just prior to the meeting that we will read into the record this evening for those agenda items. So with that, I would like to get started, and our first business item that we will deal with this evening, we typically have approval of minutes. There are no minutes to approve this evening, so we will dispense with that and move to conflict of interest. Do any members of the commission have a conflict of interest this evening?
No.
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 No. Okay, that,
No.
thank you. All right, number 3, approval of findings of fact. We have one finding of fact to approve this evening, a Spring Creek Cove PUD. Applicant was Jacob Ballstedt, and it is a conditional use permit for Garbett Homes. Has everyone had a chance to review that finding of fact?
Yes.
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 Now, let's see. I'm trying to think.
Motion.
Just acclimate. I do need a motion to approve that, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the findings and facts and conclusions for Spring Creek Cove PUD as discussed.
Thank you.
What meeting was it? April.
Okay. Scott, do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, I have a motion by Scott Woodbury, a second by Lisa Mokevich, to approve the findings of fact for Spring Creek Cove PUD. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, all right, we shall move on. All right, our first conditional use permit this evening is for Stroker Diesel at 366 West, 6100 South. They're requesting an auto sales business permit. And Jared will be presenting this?
Yep,
Thank you, Jared.
So as you said, Chairman, this is an application for auto sales. Stroker Diesel is an active business. They repair diesel engines, obviously, as it says in the title of their business. They are in a unique position. This is the, as you can see on the, I think you can see on the screen. I'm going to assume you can see on the screen. Their building is one of several buildings in a large industrial park. It's about 15 acres. And they are just this one building that's highlighted in red there on the screen. It's in the MG zone. And this use is allowed, but only with a conditional use permit associated with it. They have a number of parking spaces, and this is kind of the main issue for the item is the available parking. So as I said, they have an existing business that's vehicle repair, and we do those parking requirements based on the number of repair bays, the space that's needed for that. Counting that up, we need 12 spaces. They have 16 spaces provided associated with that. For vehicle sales, they've identified 5 spaces they can use, and have an additional 2 besides that that could be used for buyers, clients coming to the facility to look at a truck or something for sale. So we calculated a total of 19 required spaces. There are 26 available to the applicants. We feel like that's enough to make it work as a business. You can see those spaces kind of lined out here for you. There are a number of spaces as well back here for cars that are waiting their turn to be repaired inside the building. The other issue to be aware of is we do have some handicap stall striping, things like that. We've asked that the applicants, as a condition of approval, have no more than 5 vehicles for sale at any one time, because there is, as you're aware, with auto repair, there's a lot of parking taken up already. So that's the one concern that we have, that there not be too many cars for sale causing a problem that bleeds out into the rest of the industrial park. So we are recommending approval of the conditional use permit with these 7 conditions, including that 5-vehicle limit, and then keeping the area in front of those overhead doors where you get into and out of the building for repairs clear and open, and then getting their business license for vehicle sales as well. Any questions for staff at this point?
No?
I have one.
Please, Susan.
I'm just wondering, will the parking space be striped and painted for the ADA? I know there's a sign on the wall, but will they have to paint the asphalt also?
That's a good question, Sue. Thanks. And yes, we can have them do that for the business license review. Mark Boren, our code enforcement officer, assistant planner, goes out and does the business license reviews and is a real stickler for painting the stalls and making sure the signs are up. So,
Okay, thank you.
you bet.
Now, Jared, are we
One more,
going
Jared.
to hear anything from the applicants this evening? Or
Richard was on earlier when we were having the pre-meeting, and he's the applicant here. I don't see him now, though.
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, are you? Okay.
okay.
Yep,
You can't
sorry.
have so many people shown.
That's all right. Thank
Just
you.
not on our screen right now, so. Okay, there you are, Richard Whitaker, right?
Yep.
Is there anything you would like to add, Mr. Whitaker?
I just don't know what ADA is, I guess. Just if you can explain that. Other than that, everything else is pretty self-explanatory.
It's the handicap parking stall. So the handicap access parking stall should be painted, striped. So there's a sign. I'm going to go back to so there's the sign up indicating that it's there, and you have the appropriate space here that's striped for the that's hatched out so that nobody parks in it for
Correct.
van accessible spaces. This
Yep.
ought to have the handicap symbol painted into it as well.
Oh,
That's what-
okay. Nope,
Now-
that's not a problem.
Are you familiar with the recommendations and conditions of approval? And are you willing to comply with those?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Any questions from the commission for the applicant while we have him right now?
Should we expand on Jared's answer just slightly? ADA stands for American Disability Act. It's a
Right.
federal law.
Sure. Any other questions or comments?
No.
Okay. I just have a general comment that I would like to make in the record, and I would like to go on record as just being concerned that this is an industrial park. I realize that the applicant meets all the rules, regulations, and everything to the letter in order to have this use take place in this zone. We're not modifying anything. It's a totally acceptable use. However, I am just concerned from a general standpoint that we continue to get these very small car dealerships, vehicle sales dealerships, and I don't think that the original intent of the zones of these areas where they are allowed is being honored. And I am bothered by that, and I realize that it will take action by the city and by the commission in the future to prohibit those if we so desire. But I just want to go on record as saying that I'm really not excited about this kind of use in here, although it is totally acceptable according to our rules and regulations.
Thank you.
Okay? And with that, if there's any more discussion, I would welcome it from any of the commission members. If not, I'm open for a motion.
Commissioner Markham, just to add to yours, I've been on this for a long time. We've had this discussion over 9 years that we would love to see an area within the city was a little more designated for these types of businesses rather than just kind of put them wherever we can. So I do echo, for the record, Chair Markham's sentiments on that, or sentiments, not sediments, anyway. But I will make a motion.
Actually, I need to pause for a moment.
Yes.
Because we still do need to open up
Oh, yeah.
Public comment?
the public comment portion of it. We're all just gonna have to awkwardly sit here for about 3 minutes,
Okay.
while we wait for any emails.
I apologize. Okay.
Okay.
I
Then I won't make a motion.
I will open this this agenda item up for public comment at this time and encourage anyone that would like to communicate an email
Yeah,
into planning staff to do so immediately.
Yes, so this is the opportunity for anybody from the public.
That's new.
Yeah.
We've not
Yes,
done it like
this
this
is an
before,
opportunity
so
for anybody
I
from the public
apologize.
to send an email to Planning Commission at Murray, MURRAY .UTAH.gov. If you have any, if you're live streaming and have a question or comment, please email your comment now, and we'll attempt to address it. So we'll give it about 3 minutes. It's going to be the longest 3 minutes of everyone's lives as we sit here and be quiet.
Longer.
Thank you, Zach. We hadn't talked about that, and I didn't even
I
think about how
apologize.
we would handle public comment, so thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe Travis could play the piano.
Or Bryant could
Travis cannot play
explain
the
his
piano.
background. Maybe Bryant can explain his background. Looks like he's in Germany on vacation.
It does look like he's on vacation.
Amsterdam,
Does he have shorts on? There we go.
It's Prague.
Prague.
Oh, that's true. That's the astronomical
Only
clock.
travel virtually now, so
Yeah.
I got to do it how I can.
Very nice.
Actually, there's a wonderful little sweet factory right around the corner from that clock. So,
For the public who doesn't know what we're talking about, or those who are just curious, he has a backdrop behind him that's Prague.
Prague's
That-
an amazing
that's correct.
city.
He's high tech. Two more minutes.
Are you counting, Zach?
Yeah, 6:46. So
This is probably longer for the applicant than us. So,
very much.
yeah.
I have to say, this is the best social gathering I've had in 3 weeks. Well, tomorrow will be.
You got to
3
get
weeks.
out more.
Or not?
Or not.
It's still 6:44.
That's all right.
It has been.
I
Like
get-
March 31st. It just continues.
Hey, we did make it into April, so, I mean, it's been long so far, but still feels like March.
I do have to say, I'm disappointed we didn't meet on April 1st, because I'm sure it would have been fun with you, Scott. I wouldn't have had anything witty to say, but Scott would have been
Oh.
exciting.
It would have been fun. Hey, you're too close. 6 feet. 6 feet.
I'm just getting
I'm going to get under the desk. Susan, that cough sounded like COVID. You better go get tested now.
She's,
Sounded
it
like a
looks
dry-
that she's shooting you.
I did email Susan and said, "What's with Bryant's background?" So
Nobody?
I love it.
I do too.
Great.
I think this would be okay if you're.
All right.
All right.
All right, seeing no comment, I will close the public comment portion of this agenda item and bring it back up here to the commission for a motion if anyone sees fit.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a vehicle sales business at the property addressed 366 West, 6100 South, subject to conditions 1 through 7.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ned. I have a motion by Scott Woodbury, a second by Ned Hacker, to approve a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a vehicle sales business at the property addressed 366 West, 6100 South, subject to conditions 1 through 7 as presented to us this evening. Call for a vote, please.
I'll just do it. Commissioner Woodbury,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Ney,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
and Chairman Markham.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion
that-
passes unanimously. Good luck with your business, sir. And you got lucky. You get to turn off this meeting now.
Yep, I do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, guys.
All right. Agenda item number 5 is an accessory dwelling unit presented or being requested by Justin Heaps at 6278 South Laureen Drive. And
Yep.
Zach will be presenting this to the commission this evening.
Yes, thank you very much. So this, like you said, is an conditional use permit application for an ADU, which is accessory dwelling unit. It's just north of 6400 South on the east side of the city. That is, Justin Heaps currently owns the property and is remodeling the entire house. And as part of that, would like to obtain a conditional use permit for a accessory dwelling unit. He does have, as one of the requirements is to have 2 additional off-street parking stalls, and as a part of that, he will be paving additional driveway space. He has adequate enough space with the 2-car garage and the existing driveway, but he will be paving the north side to allow for additional space there. And let's... All right, and this is the main floor plan. That it has, 3 bedrooms upstairs, kitchen, dining room, living room. That doesn't really matter. So the ADU downstairs has the living room area with kitchen over here, and then 2 bedrooms. There is a connection between the main dwelling and the ADU right here. This is the separate area, though. This is occupied by the homeowner and is being used by the homeowner. The ADU would be on this side. So with that, there have been a couple calls on this application where a lot of them had questions about like Airbnbs, VRBOs, whether it's going to be an entire rental property and things like that. Per the standards for accessory dwelling units, we do not allow that Airbnbs and VRBOs, what we call short-term rentals, to be part of. They aren't allowed in Murray in single-family zones. And as a condition, condition number 13 here, it specifically states that it would not be allowed. This is just an additional precaution to make sure that they are not allowed for ADUs. Additionally, the property owner or somebody on deed has to live on property. So somebody on deed would be part of the property ownership as well. So we do require that, and they have to fill out an owner occupancy affidavit. We do that as a staff level, and it has to be recorded up at the Salt Lake County Recorder's Office against the deed. And also they have to obtain a business license to rent out that bottom portion. So there are many checks that we have for these accessory dwelling units to make sure that they are meeting all the regulations. But with that, staff is recommending that we approve this accessory dwelling unit, subject to the 13 conditions in front of you.
Any questions from the commission members here and online to staff on this item?
This might be the appropriate time for me
Please.
to ask about
Yes,
the bedrooms.
please.
Just for clarification on the bedrooms, earlier in the pre-meeting, I asked this question. The floor plan shows 3 bedrooms. I thought you stated that floor plan had changed. Am I on the wrong item? Or is it just that one floor? This is the floor plan and one
This is-
room is the
This
upstairs?
is yeah, on your screen right now is the floor plan. And it should have been included in there. The main floor plan can look a little different. So I'm not sure, because there is the main floor plan, because these are the existing building permit drawings that he provided as well, because he was remodeling the entire house. So he included both the main floor plan and the ADU floor plan, which the ADU floor plan does show that there are only 2 bedrooms, but there is a connection to the main dwelling, which we like that they have, especially since the mechanical room is technically in the ADU side. The property owner needs to have access to that at any given time.
Hey, Zach, is there there's no sort of condition like it has to have a lock on it, like that door to separate or anything?
No, that's purely up to them if
Okay.
they want. I mean, obviously they probably want to do that.
Well, you would think,
but no, there's nothing that says they have to do it. So
Right. Because I mean, so the area designated does comply with the square footage, because I know it's quite close to the 1,000.
it is.
And so, the in theory, with not having it separated down there in the basement, that 3rd bedroom could be used by those rentals if they were not abiding by the terms.
Anything could happen.
I mean,
Yeah, there could be. That could happen. Almost any one of these accessory dwelling units has a connection
Okay.
throughout. That's usually one of the things we like to see, is that there is a connection in case of an emergency, that they can the property owner can get into that quickly.
Right.
But most of the scenarios that you're discussing are slightly different design, because this is designed such that you could have 3 of the bedrooms in your accessory dwelling rentals. So we're just going on the honor system like we do with the UTA.
Oh, we always do.
Exactly. And I mean, and if they were to open that up, they would have access to the main floor as well. I mean, there's a staircase right there that would lead right up to the main floor. So, I mean, you wouldn't be able to just leave that unlocked. And
Well, you could put a door at the top of the main floor as easily as you could put a lock in the door in the basement. But I'm just,
yeah,
And there
that's-
is one.
And that's just getting to the kind of the hypotheticals at this point,
Yep.
and we can't.
Right.
I can only go off what's being
But
submitted to
this
us now.
is, just for the people, this is a very common ADU. There often is a door that connects, and we prefer to have it. So I guess that was more of my point, is that these ADUs are designed so that the homeowner, has a specific space to rent out, but they also, it's not a separate apartment or or where they don't have access. I mean, it is still the same home, and we do
Correct.
trust the homeowners to follow the ordinances, and that's why we have a public meeting. That's why we have conditions. That's why we do business checks. The business
Exactly.
license, right?
Perfect.
Right.
All right. Is the applicant online? Mr. Heaps. There you are.
Yeah, I'm here.
Is there anything you would like to add, Mr. Heaps?
No, not really.
Okay. Any questions from the commission members for the applicant?
The only question I had is last time I met with you, last time I went in for the pre-meeting, I'm not sure what it was called. They want me to put heaters in the basement, which I'm going to do. I was just wondering if those need to be hardwired. They're baseboard heaters, if they need to be hardwired or if they can just be plugged into an outlet.
Okay. That's a question for staff.
Yeah, that we can address with Steve with the building department, or division, sorry, Steve with the building division. If you want to give me a call tomorrow, we can actually, I'm sorry, I'm
Okay.
not there tomorrow. But we can work that out as part of that. That would just be something that we work with the building division.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Mr. Heaps, are you comfortable with the 13 conditions that have been attached to the application, and will you be willing to comply with those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner
Yes.
Chair,
Yes.
can I ask one
Please.
question? It's a little bit obvious,
Absolutely.
but just
Go
for
right ahead.
the record to have the question asked. You just said yes, you can comply, so I'm assuming yes. My only question is, in the application, your address was different than the property that we're discussing, it's my understanding it's because it's a new property and you haven't had the opportunity to move in yet. It's a property that's new to you and you haven't had the opportunity to move in yet, but you plan to live there, correct? Or someone on the deed does.
Yeah, I'll live there. It's still being remodeled. It's not livable yet. So, but I will live there once it's done.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. With that, I'll now open this agenda item up for public comment. If anyone would like to submit electronic communication to the commission, do we need to say the email address again, Zach?
I think it's actually Bill. He's the guy that actually is recording the video, doing the Murray live stream right now. There's a ticker at the bottom.
Perfect.
So that's showing it right now.
We'll
so.
just wait and see if we have any public comment for the next couple of minutes. Then.
Okay.
So bear with us, folks.
And thank you, Bill.
As we wait, it kind of reminds me of being on NPR during the fundraising weeks, where I just turn off the radio for the 3 minutes while they try to pitch it to me.
Travis, you should put your hoodie up. It makes you look a little more legit there. With your big, yeah.
The headphones, you could
Yep.
be
Looks
in the radio station.
Your name's Flava Nay. You're a rapper. I think he's rapping, but we can't hear him.
Thank goodness we can't hear it.
It's kind of like a bald version of Eminem.
Brian's probably having a field day with this, listening to us just sitting here talk about nothing. Yes.
Well, I can update you on the COVID cases and the anticipated. There's a really good website, actually, that shows each state when they anticipate the peak in resources and in deaths, if you ever want to know.
Thank you.
So when's our peak, since you're...
April 24th is what they're for Utah.
That's great.
So, in case you're curious.
I this was supposed to be the one night that I have a break from talking about COVID-19. Thank you very much.
We're here in this situation because of it, Zach. Oh, sorry, April 23rd. It changed. That was yesterday.
Okay, I think.
All right, Zach, I think we're good. With that, we have not received any public comment thus far. All right, I will close the public comment period on this agenda item and bring it back up to the commission for a motion, if you so desire, or more discussion if necessary.
Mr. Chair, just again, just a reminder to all those public, watching and listening, is accessory dwelling unit ordinance has been in for 7 years now, and 8 years, 10 years. I couldn't see some of your fingers, but it's been in for a long, long time, and we've seen a lot of these come through, and it really tends to make things run a little bit better. We know people are renting properties out there, and so this is really a great way. I know people get concerned about them, but this is a great way to protect the neighborhood, and I'm always supportive of these as they do it the right way. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve.
Excuse me for a second. Travis was saying something.
Travis is always saying something.
Yes,
Well, maybe
Travis.
it's important.
Yes. You're muted right now, Travis.
Yeah, we can't
cannot
hear you.
We cannot hear you, sir. Therefore, it's not important. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit to allow the construction and/or operation of an accessory dwelling unit at the property addressed 6278 South Lorraine Drive, subject to conditions 1 through 13.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion by Scott Woodbury, a second by Marion Patterson, that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow the construction and/or operation of an accessory dwelling unit at the property address 6278 South Lorraine Drive, subject to conditions 1 through 13, as presented this evening. Call for vote.
Commissioner Woodbury,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Nay. I think a thumbs up will do.
Connecting to audio.
Okay, never mind.
Give us a
Commissioner
thumb.
Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker.
Yes.
And we're still waiting. Okay.
We got a thumbs up.
We got a thumbs up from him, and so I'll take it. And Chairman Markham.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Motion passes unanimously. Good luck, Mr. Heaps, with your AUD, and hope it works out well for you. Okay.
Thanks, I
Moving on.
appreciate it.
Moving on, we will move to agenda item number 7, which is another accessory dwelling unit, a conditional use permit for that application. This is by Greg Fabiano, and the location is 5767 South Nina Way. And Zach, will you be presenting this as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, this is an application from Mr. Fabiano for an accessory dwelling unit at 5767 South Nina Way, located pretty much in the middle of the city. Located here is an aerial map. Currently, the property has more than enough parking. There's a very large concrete pad there. All this green area is already paved. They used to have, before he purchased it, they used to have a camper trailer back here, and this is just a carport, and then it's very large. So parking's not an issue. I apologize, I don't remember. So this is an 880 square foot ADU, which does meet the requirements of the ADU ordinance, being less than 40% of the main dwelling or 1,000 square feet, whichever is less. We did have a few comments come in. I'm just trying to find out which ones.
I have 2 emails, Zach.
Okay, you have 2 emails? Okay,
yes,
perfect.
Yes, 2 emails that came in prior to the meeting. Do you want me to read those, or how do you want to do that, or are they part of the record?
They will be those are part of the record because of the...
Just for the record, I'd like to make sure that the commission members had a chance to see those emails and read those. Can I get an affirmative if appropriate?
Yes.
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 Ned, Travis, and Sue?
Yes.
Okay. Ned, have you had a chance to look at those emails?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And Travis, a thumbs up again will do just fine.
Affirmative.
Ah, very good. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
We have
He has
it.
a voice.
Okay.
All right. Excellent. So
Okay, great.
all commission members have reviewed that. Then.
Okay,
So
perfect.
thank you.
Great. Apologize. So this is just a basic floor plan from the county's website that gives just very basic sketches. This is more detailed. This is the ADU area. So there's the wet bar, which is actually going to be the kitchen, their living room area, and 2 bedrooms. This also has been submitted or will be submitting, I don't remember at this point, for a building permit to actually do the work. Actually, I think it is already in process as a remodel. And so here's a couple photos of the site. So like I had mentioned, you can kind of see here, very large parking area. That's why I remembered there was a building permit already in, because they were already digging the window wells that needed to be enlarged.
Right.
Again, we did receive some comments. I just wanted to go over those again. They were the exact same as we typically get. We're concerned about the property owner living there. I believe in this case, Mr. Fabiano has his daughter on title, and she will be living in this home. Since she is considered one of the homeowners, she would be required to be part of the owner affidavit that needs to be submitted to the city and then recorded with the Salt Lake County Recorder's Office against the property. Additionally, we don't allow temporary or short-term rentals like Airbnb, VRBO in accessory dwelling units. so that won't be allowed. We require that the applicant obtain a business license that's renewed yearly, and we verify that those things aren't being done. So with that, and those were most of the questions that we've received at this point. I didn't see anything else that really stood out to me. So with that, staff is recommending approval, subject to the 13 conditions.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Zach at this point?
I do have a question for you, Zach, because one of the concerns in the email that we got was that in these floor plans, why is it called a wet bar and a game room and not a kitchen and a living room?
Those are great questions, and I was thinking about them myself, and I realized it at the time that just now actually, because we allowed the building permit to come in with a second kitchen covenant, which means that he wouldn't be renting out the property, so that he can go forward with the building permit side and get the construction underway. But that doesn't limit him from getting an ADU down the line. And that's what he decided to do after talking to his daughter. They decided that they did want to go through the ADU route. So he had his building permit in, which showed the wet bar and game room. And so those are the plans he gave me. And then what happens is that now that they're applying for the ADU, those ADU things will still apply. So I think, does that answer your question?
So you're saying he purchased the house, made a plan to remodel it.
Correct.
As the owner.
Yes.
And lived there. And was planning to have a wet bar and a game room.
Correct.
And then in process decided that he would like to rent out the basement.
Correct.
So is now applying for an ADU.
Correct.
I would like to request that you please contact this person who has emailed and let them know the recourse that they have if it does become Airbnb
Sure.
and is used as a wet bar and a game room.
Definitely.
And they are not complying with the ADU as it's written in the, I mean, I think that her email is very valid because when you look at this plan,
Right.
this does not look like an ADU that we typically see.
Correct. Yes. And I did notice that while I was talking to you about that here, and I was like,
That's a
why is that labeled that way? And then I realized that this is one of those that we took in the building permit, and we tell these people when they come in, this can't be an ADU or without going through a process. You can't rent this out. I can't have a kitchen being installed here. You can have a wet bar, that's fine. You know, you can have a sink and a
Right,
and a
and
refrigerator.
people's plans change as they get into this process.
That's
if you
correct.
Understand, and
Yeah.
he's taking the appropriate steps.
Yes.
But just the way he got here maybe feels like he had other intentions.
Correct.
And those intentions have changed. But I would just appreciate if you would let this neighbor know
For sure.
what recourse, because she's not here and she maybe doesn't have follow up. She does have recourses if this property is not being used as an ADU as is appropriate.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree. And I would say if the person that had sent this email is still concerned, we typically reply to these emails anyway. But if she is still concerned, if she's watching this video, she is more than welcome to give us a call before. Like I said, I am off tomorrow and Monday. It's my birthday weekend, so I'm going to go home
And be
sit
alone.
and be alone.
Go in your basement.
Yeah. And so I won't be there, but I will definitely, if I don't hear from her by Tuesday, I'm more than happy to send an email back
That would
to
be
her.
great. I would
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And Mr. Chairman, and Zach, when you address this particular application and the person that emailed, could you also address her third line, which says renters with other people around there? So, just reinforce that that even if she knows, because she says that she knows there's renters next to them and other ways, just help her to understand that those are, if she is able to contact the homeowners, that we would request that, that they go through the same process. Because again, that's the best way to control any of these ordinances, is just through neighbors being vigilant and understanding.
We don't, people can rent houses, but if they are renting out portions of houses, then that's a different issue.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's different.
Yeah.
I would need to know a little more context on
that
that one.
Yeah, that was it. Just making sure, because that was a concern of hers, is
Correct.
that. And so
Yeah,
just making
and-
sure that, because it could be, we have seen it many places, where it's, a couple renters on the top floor and a couple renters on the bottom, which obviously is not permitted.
Right.
And so we need to make sure that she understands that she has recourse for all renters, not just this particular one.
Correct. Yeah, and if
So-
she's having issues, in a single family home, Murray City designates a single family as 4 unrelated individuals. So four individuals could be renting a home from somewhere that only has one kitchen, and that's still just considered just
Yeah.
4 dudes
Right.
or 4 girls, just 4 women living together in a home, whatever. That we don't regulate.
Sure. Right.
But
Okay.
if it is a multiple kitchen type thing, they're renting it out as an ADU, that's something we enforce strictly.
And that's all it was, just
Yeah,
to make her
for sure.
understand that.
Thank you. Yes.
The best way to enforce any of these, per Commissioner Patterson's comment, is just to be a vigilant neighbor.
Definitely.
Not just this application, but everything around there. And if she has questions, she can certainly reach out to the. So.
Of course. And I would like to say thank you guys as well to keep reminding me of things like this, because I've been dealing with trying to keep the meeting running and
Sure.
everything.
No.
So if I miss something, please don't let me off the hook
You're
for
going
it.
crazy right
so
now.
I apologize. I'm just managing.
Is that Mr. Smallwood? You're doing a great job at both things at once. Can I ask you one other question?
Of course.
Please.
Along the lines of what's already been said, this floor plan did throw me off a little bit too as well, because it looked like the only entrance to the basement was through the house, which is okay. But in our report, it stated the entrance to the proposed ADU is located in the rear yard area along the east side of the single-family home. The entrance is a door that is shared with the main dwelling. Where is that? I still can't quite figure it out.
That can be a little confusing, and the only reason why I understand it is because I had a home that had this. So, from what I understand, and Mr. Fabiano, if I'm saying this wrong, you can correct me. But as far as I understand, there is probably a door somewhere around here. Somewhere about here that goes in, and you can go a step over and up to enter into the main dwelling.
That little door into the wet bar kitchen area.
Right.
Ah.
Or you can go down the steps.
Up.
So you go up a step and you enter
The main
main dwelling. So there's another door that separates it, or there's a door here that lets you down into the accessory dwelling unit.
Right.
Hence the 2 steps in the wet bar / kitchen area. Okay, maybe I'm understanding it now.
Well, that's this part here. This goes up.
But these here are steps, right?
I don't know what these here are.
No.
I'm sorry. So from what I understand, these go upstairs to a landing that's right here. And then I apologize, I don't know where the door is, but there's probably a door going out and then a door going into the main floor.
Oh, to the right there, into the wet bar?
Yeah.
Yeah, kitchen.
If it's of some help, I can explain it. You are correct. You're correct, Zach. If you go straight up that staircase, it ends on a landing that then steps right out to the back, right out the back of the house.
Okay.
Or you can go to the right at the top of that landing, go up a couple steps, and then you can walk into the main level of the house.
Okay.
So for clarity, the door that you see in the basement is simply a door to access some space underneath the stairs. That's not going up the stairs.
Thank you. That was my question, because initially it looked like there was something underneath this as well. Okay.
Yeah. All that is just a little tiny storage closet underneath the stairs. That's what that door is.
Well, Mr. Fabiano, while we have you here, is there anything else you would like to add in addition to the staff presentation?
I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's really pretty basic. As Zach properly mentioned, my daughter will be living there. And we were in the process that basement had never been finished. And so I thought, well, let's just go ahead and finish the whole thing. And then after going through the process of getting a building permit to do that, and I had asked Zach a question about something or other, I don't remember what it was, and he mentioned about doing the ADU. I thought, well, while we're doing this, we might as well get it approved for that too. So that way, we were kind of killing two birds with one stone, so to speak.
Okay.
So at present, it is not planned to use that basement as a separate apartment. My daughter will be living there, and she'll have a couple of roommates, and they're going to have access to the whole place. But we thought while we're in the process of doing that, we might as well get the approval to do that in the future. Should she deem in the future that she would prefer to have the main level to herself and anybody else downstairs in the basement.
Okay. Thank you. Are you familiar with the 13 conditions, and are you willing to accept those and comply by those?
Yes, that's fine. I've already read them, and that's all fine.
All right,
and
excellent.
Relative to what Zach had also mentioned, we've already done the second kitchen covenant. We've already did the affidavit. We've done all that stuff. We've got a building permit. We've had all the inspections. Right now, we're sheetrocking the place and moving toward finish.
Great.
So
now it sounds like all you have to do is win over a couple of neighbors and you're home free.
Yeah, if there's any objections from any neighbors, I'm unaware of it. No one's ever mentioned anything to me. So, but yeah, we want to keep everything according to do everything according to Hoyle. So that's the reason we're going through
and we appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right, with that, I'll open this agenda item up for public comment, and we'll see if we have any electronic public comment come in. Susan indicates that she does have a couple of public comments. How do you want to deal with those?
Yeah, you can just read them in.
Okay, we will have Susan Nixon read those into the minutes.
Okay, looks like we've got two, actually three, but one person emailed twice. This is from Kelly Enos. If his daughter is on title, why is she not living there now? Please ask Mr. Fabiano the question. He also sent a previous email that said, I am against the rezoning proposal for this house. The owner has not been in the house, and they bought it in October of 2019. I feel they will try to rent out both upstairs and downstairs without either owner living there. The owner has not moved into the house yet.
Okay.
Then,
I'll be happy to answer each question if you wish.
there's one other email we got during this meeting from Jacqueline Henry. We've been told that his son and daughter would be living there. The upstairs is livable, and there has been no one living there yet. The house was bought in October of 2019.
Okay. All right, Mr. Fabiano, if you'd like to address those concerns.
Sure, you bet. Number one, the house was bought in December of 2019, so it's just been a few months. It is correct that no one is living there presently, and the only reason being that in the middle of a construction zone where there's a tremendous amount of dust, including concrete cutting for cutting in egress windows, all the framing, etc., it's a very dusty, noisy environment. And so for that reason, our daughter is not there. She's presently living with us in our home. And so we're simply waiting. And also with the plumber, we had to completely redo all the plumbing for that basement. We had to cut out the concrete floor. We had to put in a new drain line and all new plumbing, all new electrical, all new HVAC, et cetera, through that. So living in that is not necessarily an ideal situation. So that's the only reason nobody's living there presently. We had actually hoped to have her in there by the end of January, but with delays in getting the skilled trades over there, the electrician, et cetera, those guys are in high demand. They're hard to get over there. Secondly, we had to wait for the permit, which took about a month, and then getting the inspections and people back for things. It just takes time. So I said we had hoped we'd have this done by the end of January, but now we're in the beginning of April, and now we're hoping for the end of April we'll be done. And then at which time then she'll be available to go ahead and move in.
Excellent. Thank you for that information. Any other comments that have come in? All right. With that, I will close the public comment portion of the meeting and bring it back up here to commission members. Lisa?
did we answer all the questions that were typed in? There was a question about rezoning that we should just address.
Zoning, there is no rezone.
I
Well, I know, but-
can address that. This is not a rezone request. This is what's called a conditional use permit
Yeah.
request. The difference there is that a conditional use is a type of use within a zone that is allowed with conditions. So as long as the Planning Commission can find that potential negative impacts can be substantially mitigated, they can't. Then the conditional use permit shall be approved. That's why we tie these 13 conditions. These go towards substantially mitigating those impacts. So with that, we believe that Planning Commission should approve the conditional use permit.
Okay. Thank you, Zach. All right. Any other questions or comments from commission members online or here in City Hall?
My only question, or not comment, and Zach's already committed to doing this, but one of the reasons that I like conditional use permits for accessory dwelling units is that it does give neighbors recourses or ways to handle if somebody is being a bad renter. And so I do feel like if there are situations going on with this property in particular to have concerns about, I think that when those neighbors come in and are part of these meetings, they find out what steps they can take. And so I think because we're in these unusual circumstances, the extra step of contacting those neighbors who have written into us would be a great resource for them. So they know. So,
Definitely. And I will make sure that I reach out.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments? All right. Seeing none, I will. Oh, yes, Susan, we had one more comment. Thank you. No, that's great. It's, there's a lag with this type of meeting, so.
Just one more email asking if Mr. Fabiano's son will be moving there as well. That's all.
In response to that, he actually intended to move there as well. In the meanwhile, he's now thinking he'll probably end up moving down to Utah County, but she will be there regardless.
Okay. And thank you. Thank you very much. All right. With that, the public comment period has been closed, and we'll bring it back up here for comment or a motion if anyone sees fit.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit to allow the construction and or operation of an accessory dwelling unit at the property addressed 5767 South Nina Way,
Correct.
subject to conditions 1 through 13.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Lisa Mokevich and a second by Scott Woodbury that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow the construction and or operation of an accessory dwelling unit at the property addressed 5767 South Nina Way, subject to conditions 1 through 13 as presented to us this evening. Call for vote, please.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodbury,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson,
yes.
Commissioner Ney,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
and Chairman Markham.
Yes. Thank you, Zach. All right. Good luck with that, Mr. Fabiano.
Thank
We
you
will
very
move
much.
to agenda item number 8 now, also a conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit. And this is by Nathan, the applicant is Nathan Murdoch. The address is 6007 South 115 West. So 6007 South 115 West in Murray. And Zach, are you the lucky staff member again?
Yep.
All right.
I just love ADUs so much.
Yes, you do,
So,
apparently.
Yes.
You're getting quite good at them.
Yeah, right? So this is an application again for an accessory dwelling unit. It's a proposed 722 square foot ADU, which again does meet the the requirements of being less than 40% of the dwelling and less than 1,000 square feet. It's located right here on 115 West. If you can see on your screen, I'm kind of hovering over. This is Liberty Elementary right here. So it's kind of near the southern portion of the city.
It's right in the middle of the city, Zach.
Okay, that's close enough. It's Central South City. There we go.
Right.
Again, I pulled kind of the living area or the main floor level from the county. So this is kind of the main home, covered patio. There's an attached garage here with a covered porch. These are the drawings for the accessory dwelling unit. So there is a bedroom. So you have steps from the main dwelling, from the rear of the main dwelling downstairs to the kitchen area, bedroom over here with a living room and then a studio over here as well. There is a restroom here as well, as well as the kitchen facilities here. Shot a couple photos. So there is a gravel area that we are requesting. Even though the parking requirements we feel can be met, this would provide additional parking area for the homeowner and potential any ADU tenant to kind of give some space there. We think it's appropriate to either pave that or concrete, whatever, just to clean that up a little bit. So other than that, same kind of thing. I had a couple less phone calls on this one, only about 3 or so. Same general concerns though about temporary or short-term rentals, and whether the applicant will be living there. And again, I addressed those concerns with those people on the phone, and after I explained that, they really didn't have any concerns. They seemed to welcome it, actually. So with that, we are recommending approval of the conditional use permit, subject to 14 conditions on this one.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for staff? All right. Is the applicant online, Mr. Murdoch?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add tonight to the presentation?
Yeah, just same question that Mr. Heaps had a few agenda items ago, just the baseboard heating. Does that need to be, just plug that in, or how does that work? So maybe Zach will give you a call as well later.
Yeah, that'd be great. If you want, you can shoot me an email too. I should have said that to Mr. Heaps as well. You can shoot me an email, and I can forward that on to Steve and get get his comments on that. If you shoot me an email, I can send that over tonight and hopefully have an answer back to you by Monday or so, because I do check my emails when I'm off, unfortunately. So.
Okay,
Sounds
Nathan,
great.
have you had a chance to review all 14 conditions, and can you comply with those?
Yes and yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, with nothing else to add, is any questions from commission members for the applicant?
No.
Okay. All right. We will open this up for public comment then. As of yet, we've not received any public comment prior to the meeting for this agenda item, but we'll give it a couple of minutes to see if we have someone email some comments in. So we'll just hang tight for a bit.
Zach, can I ask you a quick question? Sure. Susan's muting. Do you mute her or does she mute herself? Sue Wilson, sorry.
What about
Susan stood up and I slipped. I apologize. Sue Wilson. We just can't see her, and I was wondering if she had anything to say, but her mic was mute, so we couldn't hear her.
Camera's not working.
Yeah,
But does she mute herself, or do you mute her?
she can unmute her.
Okay.
I don't mute a commission member.
Okay, just a second ago when someone asked, I was looking to see if anybody was nodding, and I couldn't see Sue, and her mic was muted, so I just thought I would ask. She has the ability to talk to us if she needs to.
Yep,
right?
yep.
Okay.
She can unmute herself.
Sorry.
Yep. No, you're okay. Don't worry about it.
I wanted her to defend herself. Instead, Zach did, just reinforcing your point, Lisa. Bryant, is that a virtual background or a fixed background?
It is a virtual background.
Ah, I wanted you to say that was on your wall of your office in your house.
It was a fat head.
I'm working on painting it on one of the walls of my house.
That's lovely.
Well,
It sounds like somebody's not muted that should be.
Hey, stop talking about me like I'm not here.
But I didn't hear who it was coming from. So.
Susan, any input thus far? All right, I'm going to take the liberty of closing this public comment period and bring it back up here to the commission for more discussion, or if anyone sees fit, a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow the construction and/or operation of an accessory dwelling unit at the property address 6007 South, 115 West, subject to the 14 conditions in the packet.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ned. I have a motion by Maren Patterson, a second by Commissioner Ned Hacker to approve a conditional use permit to allow the construction and/or operation of an accessory dwelling unit at the property address 6007 South, 115 West, subject to conditions 1 through 14 as presented tonight. Call for vote.
Perfect. Commissioner Patterson.
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker.
Yes.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
And Commissioner Ney.
Yes.
And Chairman Markham.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right. Good luck with your project, and we hope it works out well for you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we will move to agenda item number 9, a conditional use permit to allow a bed and breakfast at 296 East, 4500 South. The applicant is Janet Wall. Okay, and Jared Hall has awakened from his slumber and is going to present this item to us.
I can't believe you're not sanitizing the mouse in between people.
Now you're going to make me nervous.
And the mic.
Maren has some hand sanitizer if you want.
Susan does too.
All right, Jared. I would like to mention we did receive some email comment on this agenda item prior to the meeting tonight, and they have been entered into the record. And so we let's see. Let me make sure that the commission members have all the commission members had a chance to review the emails concerning this particular agenda item.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think we're in good shape. We'll I'll take that as an affirmative from everyone since there wasn't a negative, and we'll go forward. Jared, it's all yours.
Thank you. As you said, this is a conditional use permit application for a bed and breakfast at 296 East, 4500 South. That is the corner of Atwood Boulevard and 4500 South. You can see the property highlighted right here. It's an older home that Janet Wall, the applicant, would like to modify to be a bed and breakfast. She would live in the home, and then use 5 of the bedrooms. There are 6 bedrooms total. She'd use 5 of those bedrooms as guest rooms for a bed and breakfast. We'll come back to this slide for just a moment, or in just a moment rather, but I wanted to point out the location and the fact that it is in the GO zone, the general office zone. Bed and breakfasts are a conditional use permit that's allowed there. There was some question early on in the application and among the planning commissioners as we got looking at it. Air bed and breakfast, Airbnb, VRBOs, temporary or short-term rentals like that are not allowed in the city in residential zones. We do allow bed and breakfasts in several different multifamily zones and in our general office zone, commercial development zone, etc. So this is not the same thing as an Airbnb in a single-family neighborhood where we would not allow it. I just wanted to make sure I get that out of the way as we get looking at it. This is a site plan showing the home itself. There are a couple of storage and garage buildings here on the Atwood Boulevard side that you can get to from Atwood Boulevard through an opening, a drive opening, but the principal drive access to the home is here on the west. It opens up to a really large, really deep concreted area that could provide parking. We'll get into that in just a moment as well. Setbacks to the home are from 4500 South and from Atwood. They're quite large. There's a big patio area here on the Atwood Boulevard side as well, which you'll see in some photographs. The interior of the building, so there is a game room, a kitchen as well that's used for the bed and breakfast, a living room that's shared. The shaded portion here is the private portion of the residence where the applicant and resident would live, sharing the rest of the building with the guests for the bed and breakfast. This is the other floor, the upper floor, where there's another couple of bedrooms and the rec room as well. The home, as you can see, this is that large concrete area we were talking about. Just to speak about parking, the residence itself, and this was a question that the applicant had asked earlier, residences, we ask to have 2 parking spaces for a home, anybody's home, at least 2 parking spaces. So that's what we've required here. And so the residence itself will need 2 parking spaces, and then 1 parking space for every guest room. That's our standard hotel parking rate. So a total of 7 need to be provided. There isn't anything striped for a facility like this where we may need them to be brought in. We'll require that. One of those spaces needs to be ADA accessible and should be posted and signed that way. This is just a picture of the patio area that's part of the bed and breakfast for use by the guests and the owner, and then just a better shot of that concrete area that you can see there as well. We are recommending approval as staff. There are a number of conditions, and some of them are outside of our purview as planners to look at. Principal among those would be the building officials' requirements. The building officials requiring what's called a change of use permit, an application. That means that the applicants will have to hire an architect to go through the home and assess everything and present that to the building official for his review and determine what needs to be changed in order for it to be safe and to meet building codes for there to be guests living in the home as opposed to just a family as a single family home. What those requirements are, I don't know yet. Steve Reed, our building official, and I have been talking about that. He's working up his requirement and what he's going to be looking for, and he'll have to wait for some of that material to be provided by the applicant's architect. Another issue that did come up in our discussions was the noise ordinance. We did in some of those emails we got prior to the meeting, it was mentioned that there was some noise sometimes. We want to make sure that this business is run in compliance with our noise ordinances and the state health codes, the county health codes. There's a kitchen facility, so if they're going to be serving meals to guests, they need to have that reviewed by the Salt Lake County Health Department. So that's a requirement as well. Am I missing anybody outside of our own kind of review as planners? Almost everybody besides us has to review this kind of thing.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? Can you clarify number 10, please?
Yes. So they're not selling cars here. Janet noticed this earlier as well too and said, "I'm not selling cars." That's just me cutting and pasting. I like to keep you on your toes every 6 months or so. I like to leave the wrong land use in the final condition. So 10 should say the applicant shall obtain a Murray City business license prior to beginning operation of the bed and breakfast at this location.
Okay, thanks. Sorry.
Yep. So yeah, there aren't vehicle sales. I apologize. That should be clarified. Other issues that we talked about previously too, I just want to run back to a couple of slides. Another concern that was raised by a neighbor was the lack of sidewalks leading up to Atwood Boulevard here. We have sidewalks down the rest of Atwood Boulevard. Right here on the corner, there has not been a sidewalk previously. I mentioned to the commission earlier, and I'll just reiterate for the record and for anybody that's listening. There are instances where under different conditional use permits, we have required or can require public improvements like sidewalks or the replacement of damaged sidewalks and curb and gutter. It was not raised by the engineer's review. The city engineer requires those things. He typically does not require them unless the project exceeds $10,000 in value, and even then it's still a prerogative of his. I would leave that to Trey. We have not required it in our conditions simply because Trey Stokes, the city engineer, did not require it either, and I don't know what their other considerations beyond beyond that. But until it reaches $10,000 as a project, he won't require that. And then it would be his prerogative. So we'll have to look into that further as it goes on as a project. Were there any questions from the commission at this point?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I have one question, and it kind of goes along with the emails that were expressed by the neighbors.
Sure.
Currently looking at the VRBO listing for this property. 10 great reviews. They've really enjoyed it. A lot of game rooms and quite a lot of things. So it's more of just a question of, I know we're trying to do a bed and breakfast, but I see where the line can be a little blurred. Advertising on VRBO. Clearly, it's been used by VRBO in the past, but the reality is there was 300 when I put in Murray. So I appreciate the applicant for at least trying to do it right. But my question is more of, I guess we can't prohibit them advertising their bed and breakfast on VRBO and Airbnb. So technically, it is a VRBO. So it's just kind of that line. So the only way, our condition is basically saying she has to live there.
Correct.
And beyond that, she can advertise on VRBO.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's what I just wanted to make sure that people understand that, because I think we just say, oh, it's a VRBO, she automatically just rents the whole place out.
Right.
And whether she lives there or not, and you can't tell on some of these comments and reviews.
Yeah.
So it's just more of for the public to understand that it is a difficult situation, because if she lives there and she abides by the rules, she still can't advertise on VRBO or Airbnb. So technically, it is a VRBO.
Right. That I couldn't put it better than that. It's
And I just wanted to clarify for all those people that are joining us virtually, because it is a difficult thing, and I know many cities want to address the short-term rentals. Obviously, we've talked about it in other meetings, and so just because it's listed on VRBO doesn't mean it doesn't comply with city ordinances.
right, and that is a confusing point for folks, because when people call and ask us, do you allow Airbnb, and people call all the time,
Right.
I mean, every week at least. People call and ask about that, and our answer is always we don't allow short-term rentals, Airbnb, that kind of thing, in single-family zones.
Correct.
We do, however, allow them as bed and breakfasts in lots of other zones. Right. But we view bed and breakfasts right now, this category 1210, as an owner-occupied bed and breakfast, guest cottage kind of place.
Right. And this is not a zoning change. This is an existing zone that this is in.
Excellent point, Chairman. This is a general office zone. They didn't seek a zone change to be able to do this. It was already allowable.
Okay.
And one thing that we talked about earlier is how unusual of a application this is.
Yeah.
We do not have very many places within the city that fall within the zoning and are able to apply to be an Airbnb. So a lot of the places that are asking, that are in residential zones, wouldn't meet the same criteria that this application meets.
99 out of 100 of them don't.
And
I can think of one other one where it was approached, where the owner of the home called us about doing a bed and breakfast, but then dropped the project because their daughter moved in or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
Because so much of our protection for neighbors in single-family residence are accessory dwelling units or things like that to try and prevent short-term rentals in the city. And this is a unique situation that it is allowed, and she is complying with all of the ordinances. One of the letters says that there have been buses that have shown up and parking in front of their place and things like that. So it's unusual because the enforcement isn't the same because it is an allowed use. What recourse would they have?
That's a good question, and I think the only way I can really answer that is to say that code enforcement is how we got this application. So they're very much aware of the site, they're very much aware of the use, and they want it to be in compliance. And this is their first step toward being in compliance. If we've had complaints, we had complaints about things like that. I gather I wasn't part of the initial complaint handling, but. That's where it came from, so it's very much on their radar. So they'll have to be good actors if they want to.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me they have a gigantic area that any buses or any extra cars or I don't know why they would be impacting the neighbors because it's.
Well, and it's 4500 South.
Right.
as well. So if we keep them off of Atwood, if they're
Right.
coming and going from 4500 south, it shouldn't be an impact.
Right.
So
Jared, are there limits to the number of people that can occupy a house?
not that I'm aware of, but there might be health codes about those kind of things, and that would come up in the building department.
It's listed as for 22 people.
That's a lot of folks.
And you can see the beds on the pictures. There's 50 pictures on the VRBOs. You can clearly count them all. So again, my concern is that it is a slippery slope. It's a difficult thing. You know, it says 7 cars are allowed, but if you got 22 people showing up for ski season, I mean, it's difficult. You know, and as part of that is code enforcement actually going and trying to at least notify people that are listed on VRBO that they need to be in compliance?
We don't get to do that. Under state code,
we can't legally do that.
Initiate a complaint we have to have a complaint from a neighbor or someone outside of city staff to initiate an investigation of anything. We don't get a look at VRBO listings and say we're going to look into this. And see what's going on.
That's good to know, because again, we want the citizens to understand that, you know, you can't just go. I mean, if you go on there and you know your neighbor's renting it out, then go ahead and complain, because so much of this is done by grassroots complaints rather than by, you know, mass mailers and things. So it's such a tricky area, even more than an ADU.
Oh, yes.
That we want to make sure that both applicant and citizens understand kind of the dynamics of it.
Well, I'd like to expand the conversation a little bit, just for the record, about people in the building as well. And maybe we have a little bit of a shortcoming in our code, since we only have one bed and breakfast in Murray. Maybe we haven't fully addressed the issues around it. But in most facilities where you rent a facility, for example, a hotel, motel, there's safety concerns with number of people in those settings, like there would be in this building. For if they have 22 guests and 2 owners, 24 people in a building, with a room that's 8 by 9, with a bathroom that you access through the kitchen, it's just very small, with maybe health code issues.
It is very different and very small. Probably small for 25 people. Sounds like a lot in a building the size. I don't do occupancy reviews like they do in the building department. So it's very likely that there are rules, and the hoteliers all know them. Probably not. I don't, but it's very likely that there are rules about the occupancy of these particular rooms that will come out in that change of use review, and that's why Steve Reed, our building official, was so concerned about that. He wants to check this over and make sure that and they'll be tied up in not just the size of the rooms or even the number of the rooms, but in the capacity of those rooms to be exited in an emergency. So Steve will be looking through all of that kind of stuff. There's a good, in the complaint letter that, I don't want to say complaint letter, one of the concern emails that came from citizens nearby, there was a list of things that they would like the building official to look at. Those are all the kinds of things that he would be looking at in that change of use review. So it's the most important condition that we have by far.
And that statement's reassuring to me, and hopefully the public as well, because these kind of experiences in Murray represents how people view our community.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Jared, now, she will not be able to operate this as a bed and breakfast and have boarders until this is approved. Is that correct?
Until there's a license, that's right. And I will mention this. I know that she has operated in the past, and that came up. I took these photographs the other day and was around the property. There was nobody there. It is empty right now.
It's a different time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
the last rental was January of this year, according to VRB.
So it is empty right now, and we will. It's very much on code enforcement's radar. She won't operate again until she's got a license.
Okay.
She'll have to pass all those kinds of reviews before she's able to do that.
And my question is that if they come back and, you know, have different requirements about how many people can be occupying this bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
If she isn't complying with that, is the only answer that she loses her business license? Is that the only
or change the business to comply,
or make the change?
Have really?
Yeah, we can because we'll be operating with a license, a business license for this bed and breakfast. We can make those checks and make sure that those kinds of things are being done. So then it's different than, like Scott was mentioning, we can't right now just go browse the listings in Murray and say, well, let's check on these people, et cetera. This is a business license that we'd be operating or issuing, and at that point, we can check on that anytime we feel like we need to. So if we need to do random checks or make sure things are going on, we can do that at that point because it's a different animal.
All right. Well, with that, I'd like to ask: is the applicant online this evening?
She was in earlier, Janet. Oh, can you check and see?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Is there anything that that you would like to add in addition to staff's presentation this evening, ma'am?
Not really.
Okay, and so we have 10 conditions that are associated with this application. Have you had a chance to read all of those, and are you able to comply with those?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, any questions from commission members to the applicant?
I have a question. I'm just looking at the floor plan here, and I noticed that there's not a dedicated breakfast room. And if this is going to be a bed and breakfast, shouldn't there be a dedicated breakfast room? The kitchen doesn't appear to me to be of sufficient size for people to, they'd almost have to stand to eat in there. And most, bed and breakfast type places or hotels have a dedicated breakfast room for the consumption of food.
I can't speak to that, but perhaps Janet could, the applicant.
Ma'am?
We will see what Steve has to tell us, and then we'll go from there. Whatever he recommends is what we'll do.
Okay. And
Okay,
that's,
thank you.
That's an appropriate answer. Thank you. All right. Any other questions from the commission at this time? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to stop that and open the public comment period for a period of a few minutes. We have previously stated that we received 2 emails concerning this project. They believe that we have adequately addressed the concerns that were expressed in those emails through our discussion with staff this evening, and so we'll take some time to see if there are any additional comments.
So we just received this email from Alexandria Kobos, and says, I rent a home at 230 East, 4500 South. I go on walks past the house constantly with my dogs. It's very scary crossing the street at Atwood and 45th. People in cars don't look when turning, and the bushes in front of that house you can hardly see over. I see quite a few accidents there as well. On numerous occasions passing the house, people outside in the hot tub during the day and night can smell the odor of weed.
2 hot tubs. Okay. And okay. Thank you. That's an enforcement issue, and I'm sure that will be passed on.
Meaning that any neighbor who feels like something needs to be enforced should call it in.
Call the appropriate authority, and that's not the Planning Commission.
I would agree. I can show the picture of the front. The reference is to these Fitzers that are all in front of the home. I think I have.
They've been there for a very long
pictures
time.
down Atwood. I do have some pictures looking down Atwood, and they wrap around that entire front yard area.
Right.
So,
Right.
but they don't represent. I recognize it's probably a challenge when you're walking and feels less safe than it could. They're not violating they're not 4 feet tall, so they're
Right.
not
Right.
violating the clear view issues.
Anything else, Susan? Okay, thank you. This is actually working quite well. I'm impressed that we're having this much public input, so
Join
this
from
is
the
pleasing.
beach next time.
So yeah, just kind of bear with me when sometimes these come through, trying to make sense of them. This one is from James Kesamakis, and says, I'm watching the meeting live. Why doesn't Murray City inspect these ADU units to make sure the construction is done before they give them a license? Why do the neighbors have to? Some residents do what they say and others don't. Then he goes on to say, what about blocking our mailbox? What about the tour bus? She doesn't show any bedrooms that are occupied by her on the VRBO ad. You're right there. Great actors say one thing and do another.
All right.
But-
Thank you. Is there anything we need to address concerning that, Jared?
Probably.
There is
Now
an
that-
inspection before business license.
Well,
right?
yeah, there would be an inspection, and I think I'll reiterate just one thing really quickly about this particular application, this is a kind of this conditional use permit is a very first step for her. She's got that building department change of use review that needs to be done, and any changes that need to be implemented will have to be implemented. For accessory dwelling units, I think Mr. Kissimakis might have been referring to, we've had the 3 accessory dwelling units in a row, and why don't we inspect those before they get to do them? We do, actually. There's with every accessory dwelling unit, there's a building department review. Even if everything is already in place and we don't think there needs to be a change, looking at the plans, the building inspectors go through and check that accessory dwelling unit. So we actually do that. And for the business license here, there'll be a building inspection prior to the license opening. Regardless, there'll be kind of an extensive one in this particular case. But there would be, even if everything looked like it was perfect, there would be a building inspection before we issue the license. Okay. We do that. The tour bus and things I think we already spoke about. If there are problems like that in the future, we can only respond to them by complaint. I can't ban tour buses on 4500 South. I'm not going to be able to do that. Or Atwood, really. It's not something we can do. That's a good point. I don't know what else if I missed anything from the email.
Okay. All right. Susan, anything else?
I have another question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Yes, Ned.
So, Jared, we talked about sidewalk on Atwood.
Yeah.
Does the city own property? Does the city have right-of-way for a sidewalk for that, whatever it is, 100 feet?
I don't know. We might, but I can't say that for sure. We'd have to survey to know for sure.
Okay.
It looks like it's possible, but these are GIS lines that can be off.
Yeah.
And since we're talking about curb adjacent sidewalk down the rest of Atwood, so it's 6 feet, so it's impossible to say for sure. With just looking at the aerials and the GIS lines.
Okay. It looks like Susan has an additional email that we'd like to.
This is musical chairs tonight. Another one from Bridget Tim. I'm concerned about a couple of things about the property on Atwood and 45th. First, the only bathroom for the downstairs is through the kitchen. How is that sanitary? How many hot tubs will be used? Will there be extra traffic on Atwood as well?
Okay. Thank you, Susan. All right. With that, I will move to close the public comment period for this agenda item and bring it back up here to the commission for any additional comment in that. One thing that that I'd like to say is that these, again, we do all have questions. I know the public has questions. I'm quite sure that each of the commission members has questions concerning this application, and we at this point have to rely on the building official to make those determinations as to whether it's a safe environment, and that involves plumbing, heating, electrical, access, and exiting. Egress is very important in things like this where you have multiple people, and all of those things are going to be considered in a very comprehensive study of this particular building, and I really don't know how that's going to turn out. What we're basically doing tonight is trying to decide whether we will give permission to go ahead with seeing if this is an appropriate facility. We just don't know at this time. Is that correct, Jared?
That's perfectly said. What we're looking at is the zoning allowance for beds and breakfasts and the very basis or the very basic needs that would have to be met. And what we've really done is looked at it from a zoning perspective, a land use perspective, and said, it's allowed in this zone, the geo zone. There are certain basic requirements you'd have to meet. Is there even enough space to provide the parking? Yes. Is there enough space to make this probably work here or potentially work here? Yes, but the details of it have to be worked out beyond that. We're just looking at the land use as a category and identifying the things that you think as a planning commission need to be looked at in order to mitigate the impacts of having a bed and breakfast here. Like Zach spoke about earlier in one of the items, the purpose of the conditional use is to decide if those impacts can be reasonably mitigated. And our recommendation as staff is, yes, they probably can. If they can't be mitigated, if the problems with exiting or sanitation or kitchen facilities can't be mitigated with different construction or whatever, then we need to leave that up to the professionals that are ready to review that. But we need to point it out as a condition of their approval for the zoning and the land use. That's all we're really looking at.
And I would also like to point out again that this is an existing zone that allows this type of use. Were this a rezone tonight, I think this would be an entirely different animal, at least in my book. I would not support personally a rezone to something like this. However, it is an existing zone where this is allowed, and therefore the Planning Commission has more limited options when it comes to a permitted use in an existing zone.
Yeah, that's right.
Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, I was going to say, I disagree slightly in the sense that I do think that this is a good location for a bed and breakfast and probably a good facility to do that. I think that the applicant has a huge hill to climb to get herself to the place that she's doing it appropriately.
Right.
So because she maybe has been operating outside of those bounds of appropriately doing this, I think actually with those conversions, this maybe could be a really great bed and breakfast and use of this property in this location. It has a lot of things going for it, but like we said, based on what we hear back and what all of the professionals say about making this actually function properly as a bed and breakfast, you know, it maybe is going to be a hard hill to climb, but considering the things that are in place to try and mitigate some of those impacts, you know, hopefully she can get into compliance and make that work. So of the locations in the city that we could have a bed and breakfast, maybe this is a great spot for that.
I think those are excellent comments. Thanks, Maren.
Mr. Chairman, just to kind of add on that and read, you know, I agree. This is, if you were going to pick a spot, this would be one of the better spots in the city. But in many respects, this is like every other application we have for ADU or anything else. People have to understand that we do have limited ability to enforce, and we have to trust that the applicants, when they are asked on here, that like condition number 2, that this is the principal residence for this person, that they're being truthful, and that this really is there. And if they're willing to abide by it, then we need to trust. Our city can't operate on not a level. We have to give a level of trust for people, that people will choose to follow the ordinances, the conditions, and it'd be great if we could go proactively investigate every one of these. We don't have the staff to do that, and I think the majority of the time, people that come in and take this step, as Commissioner Patterson said, to try to do it right, most of the time they do follow these conditions. So it's just like the ADUs, we have to trust that they're not going to go through that other door to use the third bedroom or different things. But at least now we have it on public record. The applicant knows, and so if they disobey, then it is willful, disobey, and they know that.
There are consequences.
And there are consequences. You know, all the other 298 VRBO listings that I just looked at, they're all operating obviously without any sort of on public record saying that they're willing to abide. So I do commend the applicant for trying to do it the right way, and just hope that she is willing to be, to follow these 10 conditions, and wish her best of luck in that.
And I would like to emphasize that this facility is not allowed to have any renters or people staying at it until this item has been resolved. So that's an important consideration. All right. With that, commission members online, any additional comments or concerns? Okay.
Nothing.
The only thing I would say is that condition number 3, the change of use permit, is a really powerful tool, and I'm glad that we're applying it.
Okay. Thank you, Travis. All right. With that, let's see. I believe I have closed the public comment period, correct? Okay. I will bring it back up to the commission for any additional closing comments and a motion if anyone sees fit.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit to allow the operation of a bed and breakfast business at the property addressed 296 East, 4500 South, subject to conditions 1 through 10.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Scott Woodbury, a second by Travis Ney, that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a bed and breakfast business at the property addressed 296 East, 4500 South, subject to the 10 conditions presented this evening.
Mr. Woodbury,
Yes.
Mr. Ney,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Hacker,
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Markham.
A reluctant yes, but a yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We will move on to the next agenda item. That is number 10, and that is a lot line adjustment between lots 1 and 2 of the Wild Rose Estates subdivision at 5636 and 5668 South Bullion Street. Tony Rezac and Brock Rezac are the applicants.
Thank you, Commissioner Markham. As you just indicated, this is a request to amend or a boundary line adjustment between two lots that are currently located in the Wild Rose Estates subdivision. The Planning Commission approved this subdivision about a year ago. Two of the property owners, Tony Rezac and Brock Rezac, are the owners of Lot 1 and 2, respectively. They have requested to change the boundary line between the two properties. The aerial map that you're looking at now shows at the top of what would be this lot here, which is the 5636 South Bullion. It looks like it's two separate parcels, but it has been combined into one. I just wanted to clarify that. So that is one lot, and that is owned by Brock Rezac. The property owners, the intent for this boundary line adjustment is there is a well located on lot number 1, approximately in this location, if you can see. That well, Tony Rezac would like to basically give that to his grandson Brock. So therefore, they need to change the property lines. Okay. State Code Section 10-9A 608 and also Murray City Code Title 16 require Planning Commission or the land use approval for boundary line adjustments when located within a platted subdivision, and therefore this application is being brought before the Planning Commission. The idea for the transfer of property from lot number 1 is basically they are going to transfer 7,950 square feet from lot number 1 and deed it to lot number 2. Both lots exceed the minimum 8,000 square foot by a long ways. Both are, well, lot number 1 is 28,892 square feet, and lot number 2 is 15,572. With the transfer from property, they both become just about 20 to 23 square feet, 20 to 23,000 square feet.
Okay.
Let's see. We have a little technical difficulties here. Thank you. Okay, back to that. So, let me go back to this one. On lot number 1, the main access for lot number 1 is off of Bullion Street and has been that way for a long time. He also has access off of Aaron Park Circle. With the lot line adjustment, there would be no frontage basically off of Bullion Street, but the owners have agreed to have a crossover easement which would cross over lot number 2 going to lot number 1. So he would still have access both off of Aaron Park and Bullion Street.
Okay.
After review of their application and the zoning, and based on state code and Murray City Code, staff is recommending approval for the boundary line adjustment subject to the conditions as outlined, 3 conditions. I will also say that we mailed about 50 notices to the surrounding residents and have had no input or comments whatsoever.
Thank you. Thanks, Susan. Any questions from commission members online or here in City Hall? Pretty straightforward procedural item, I believe.
I guess I'm just more curious, like, why are they doing it? I mean,
the intent is because of that well that's located
just the well.
on lot number 1, and
Okay.
Tony Rezac, he's getting older in age and would like his grandson to continue to have the well right.
Okay.
The well right.
No, that makes sense. I was just curious.
Yeah.
And maybe he'll have to maintain it too.
Yeah.
Yes, he will. Yes, he will.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
just have one quick question. Is that going to be a dedicated right-of-way that's recorded?
Yes, that is part, and they already have the documents have been prepared in anticipation that the Planning Commission grants approval. So yes, it will be a dedicated easement across.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Is the applicant available online, either applicant?
They actually, I spoke with them earlier. They both would not be able to.
Okay.
Zoom
And that's
in.
fine. They were not required to be online to be present this evening, so that's not an issue. With that, I will open this agenda item up for public comment for a couple of minutes and see if we have any public comment that's submitted. And with that, we'll take a little bit of a breather here and wait for that period.
Mr. Chairman, while we wait, I guess, Susan, did they indicate that they'd be able to comply with these?
Yes,
three
I should have
conditions?
clarified that. They both
Okay.
indicated
So even
that.
though they're not
yes.
here, they did indicate that they can comply with the three conditions?
Yes,
Okay.
and they will. They've had their legal attorney prepare the documents, and they're ready to go. Yeah.
Whether they indicate it or not, if we impose them, they shall.
Yep.
Okay?
And I know their attorney, so.
I think we need some jazzy music now. Keep
Oh,
us
this is
awake.
where Travis is supposed to play for us.
Travis.
Come on, DJ Jazzy Nay.
It's a self-playing piano. I can have it just play some random song for you if you'd like.
That's my favorite kind of piano.
Yeah, one that doesn't make mistakes. Yeah, I think.
I'm going to take the liberty of closing this public comment period at this time. And seeing that we had no comment, I'll bring it back up to the commission for any additional comments or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve the proposed lot line adjustment for Lot 1 and Lot 2 of the Wild Rose Estate subdivision at the property address 5636 and 5668 South Bullion Street, subject to the three conditions.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sue. I have a motion by Maren Patterson and a second by Sue Wilson that the Planning Commission approve the lot line adjustment for Lot 1 and Lot 2 of the Wild Rose Estate subdivision at the property address 5636 and 5668 South Bullion Street, subject to the three conditions presented to us this evening. Call for a vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Woodbury,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Makavich,
Yes.
Commissioner Nay,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
and Chair Markham.
Yes. Good luck to the Rezacs, and thanks for just taking care of all this and still being around and being great neighbors. All right. Agenda item number 11 is preliminary and final subdivision approval for property addressed at 485 East, 4800 South. This is the Mash Farms subdivision. And Gary Beers, Master Real Estate and Investments, is the applicant. So, Zach, you are the lucky man to come back in front of us.
Yes, I am back. So yeah, we have two people representing this item. We have Mr. David Jenkins with Ensign Engineering as well representing this item, but Mr. Beers is also on the Zoom meeting with us as well. So with that, this is a request for preliminary and final subdivision approval for the property for about 3.32 acres in the R18 zone located at 585 East, 4800 South. It's largely, largely vacant. There is an existing home on the property that will be demolished to make room for a new lot there. This is the proposed subdivision. There are 10 lots. You can see two of the lots front onto Spruce Glen Drive. The remaining 8 lots will front onto a new cul-de-sac, which does meet city requirements and is proposed to be called Mash Farm Circle. All these lots do comply with city regulations. I think with the lowest being 8,000 square feet, like I think 8,026, I believe is the smallest. I'm sorry, I can't see it on there. Maybe it's 8,125. Anyway, doesn't matter. So, and they all do comply. This is the proposed site plan. And one thing I do want to mention here is that because staff was kind of concerned with the shallowness of a couple of these lots, like lot 4, 5, and 6, to be just to give a couple examples, we've requested that the building envelopes be placed on the plat prior to recordation, which you can see actually here. This is the proposed plat. So you can see the public utility easements are the dashed line kind of closer to the property lines, and the inside dashed line is the building envelopes. Those would include, so that doesn't mean that's what the house is going to look like, but it does show the area of what could be a house. That includes like the setback to area. So like the 25 in the front and 25 in the rear that's required for this zone. There is a significant slope on the property. I apologize, I don't have like an existing at this time, but they are going to be significantly grading this with some retaining walls and things so that it can all meet sewer, stormwater, and all those requirements. There will be some retaining walls for this existing home. She's planning, that property owner is planning to sell a portion of that property so that they can get the full cul-de-sac in there, make sure it all fits and is all up to code. As you can see here, this is the utility plan. The power will be coming off 4800, but I believe stormwater and sewer will actually be connecting down to Spruce Glen Drive through a, and I apologize, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I believe this is a 20-foot easement that goes down lots 2 and 5 that would connect down into Spruce Glen Drive. We are recommending approval subject to the 8 conditions. As you can see here, condition 1 by the city engineer has a plethora of sub stuff that they have to meet.
Right. If we if we take each one of those as a requirement, which they are, even though they are sub to the main heading, that means there's 23 conditions listed.
Correct. So there's a vast amount of conditions that need to be met, and the applicants and David Jenkin with Ensign Engineering are working with our engineering department to prepare a plat so that it is ready to record and all that fun stuff. So we are recommending approval for that. We did receive some public comment. We included, we sent you an email, I believe, yesterday or the day before that was forwarded on to us. And then we sent that over to the applicant as well, who also provided responses to those, and those have been provided to you as well. Specifically, one of the main concerns there was a gap in the parcel, which I will go back to this item, which was located about here. I'll just address that quickly. That was that had gone through a quiet title process, and it was a very quick process, and it had been determined that property has been part of the MASH property, and that was included in your packet. The information regarding the quiet title. So with that, I will just go ahead and just open it up for your guys' questions, because I'm sure I've missed something.
Well,
so.
Zach, we did get quite an extensive email from some property owners adjacent to the property, and they raised a lot of very technical questions, and they were in fact answered, I believe, quite well by the existing developer and his engineer. Is there a way? I know it may be a little cumbersome, but I think it would be helpful if we could address these things that were in the email and the resolution that was provided.
Yes.
Okay. I hate to do that to you. If you'd like, you can have my copy here. It has the responses in red. It makes it very simple to read.
I see it on the back, the very back. Here.
Oh.
You got it?
I've got it.
Okay, thank you. I know it's
sure.
They're important concerns, and they took the time to do this, and I would like to at least have those addressed.
For sure. So, Sorry, I have to go through these.
And you know what? How about if you paraphrase the concerns a little bit?
Yep.
And then you can talk about the answer.
Sure. So specifically, number one had to do with the high water table on the property, and what's been being done to keep the drainage from flowing onto other properties. That was addressed, that part of that stormwater. So grading will be conducted, as well as they responded that a geotechnical study was provided. That is required as part of the subdivision requirements. I think that it's one of the conditions in engineering, I believe, that they have that. Sorry, I was just scanning to make sure. If not, either way, they provided one because that is typically a condition that we need a geotech for the whole site.
Yes.
And that... and it does look like that when they did the boring, it was about about 7 feet below existing grade. And they do plan on following all the recommendations in the geotech report, which would be reviewed both by the building division when they come in to apply for a new single family residence, and during this process of subdividing as well.
Okay.
Number two had questions about elevation changes. Again, there will be some elevation changes because of the significant grading that would need to be done to take care of any potential within the properties, but the existing elevation next to the property won't be impacted, as the applicant has stated in their responses. So Gary Beer, the third question here was if the applicant is developing the property and building the homes as well. He will actually be selling the lots to individual home builders. I'm assuming probably, I can't speak to this, but probably a custom home builder if I had to assume, just because of the uniqueness of the lots. Number four, this is the curious question, is what are the variances for side, front, and back property? Variances is a very specific term in zoning. Variance means that you are varying from typical standards. So there are no variances on this property or on any of these lots. There are setback requirements, which are, I briefly went over them, 25 feet in the front, 25 feet in the rear, and then a minimum of 8 foot for a total of 20 feet for the sides. So one side can be a minimum of 8, has to equal 20. On corner lots...
Zach?
Go ahead.
Can I question you here just a little bit? So
sure.
By requiring them to provide the building envelopes, is that going to preclude them from coming back from a property owner 20 years from now, coming back and trying to get a variance on this lot because of its peculiar shape size? Is this going to forego or stop their ability to do that?
Yes. That's precisely why we did are requesting that, so that when anybody comes in to build a home on this property, they can clearly see that it may be a little shallow, and it was still pursued, and we approved it as such, knowing these things. So I couldn't see us in the future allowing. I mean, you never know what can happen in the future, right? But in all intents and purposes, that was a requirement so that variances really wouldn't be pursued here.
Mr. Smallwood, can
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? Have you step back one question? Sorry.
Sure.
Slow on the uptake. Number 3. You talk about the property and who's building it and developing it. Just for clarification, it says you answer that Mr. Beers will be developing the property and will be selling lots to builders. What does developing the property mean? Does that mean the road will go in, sewer, plumbing, electrical will go in?
I would probably let the applicant or his representative speak to that. I assume that they would probably be putting in the utilities and doing all the heavy work.
That is what it means, yeah.
Yeah,
Curb,
typically
gutter,
that's
sidewalk,
what you do.
utilities.
Yeah, that's typically what they'd be doing, is doing the dedication, the street, sidewalk, all that fun stuff.
Okay, and then when it says selling to builders, that means he could sell to 10 different builders or one builder who develops all 10 properties. We don't know yet.
Yes, both.
Yeah, they're just for sale.
Yeah.
They're lots for sale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so number 5 was a question about restrictions for a 3-car garage or just 2. The response from the applicant is that there's a 2-car garage requirement as a minimum. That's technically not true. It's just 2 off-street parking spaces. Typically, people put those in garages, but no, there is no requirement
that
to
the city
have a
has.
garage. The city has,
Right.
correct.
Right.
But a home builder can build as any large of a garage as
Would
they
there be
want.
covenants associated with this development? Do you know? Or no?
Not necessarily. I don't believe they're doing a homeowners association
Okay.
here.
And back to my previous statement, it could be 10 different builders with 10 different requests
Yes.
for each property.
Right.
But this says, are there restrictions for a 3-car garage? So does the house have to be the property or the lot, have to be a certain width to be able to have a 3-car garage?
No, there's really, I mean, it's all just going to have to be, and I'm not an architect, so it would just have to be what they could fit.
You could put the
in
whole
lot.
ground level as a garage and build the house on the second floor above it, as
Yes.
long as it fits the height requirements and everything.
Exactly.
So
There's no restrictions for anything
It'd
like
be
that.
an interesting house.
It would be a
but,
very interesting house.
You could probably fit 8 cars.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, that you could put no garage and just have all the parking in the driveway. It would be
Exactly.
all
You
house.
just have to have
Right.
2 off-street.
You have to have a minimum of 2 off-street somewhere on property. So number 6, it's asking what the minimum square feet for each home is. Murray City does not have a minimum square footage for a home. I don't think that's legal.
So
we have minimum lot sizes,
Right.
Which these do meet all those requirements of a minimum of 8,000 square feet, which everybody around has that. Let's see. Next would be, what is the outside and roof restrictions?
I think this is addressing height restrictions and so forth.
Okay. Yeah, because I wasn't sure what
Yeah,
that
I
really
think
means.
they're talking the height of the structure.
Yeah, height of the structure would be 35 feet to the top of the pitch, which is typically about two. You can't have more than 2.5 stories, I believe. So that's typical.
And that is standard and what is allowed in city
Yep,
code.
that's standard, and anybody's allowed to do that within this zone.
Okay.
Number 8 is overnight parking allowed on the street. Short answer is yes. Everybody can park on the street unless it's specifically designated no parking. That is public space. I defend that with every fiber of my being. Every person can park on the street as long as it's not sitting there for more than 72 hours.
Okay.
72 concurrent hours. Is the entire subdivision, number 9, is the entire subdivision fenced with the same material? If so, do you have a make, color, design, material, and address where we might check it out? No, we don't have a fencing requirement. We have fencing regulations, but that is entirely up to the applicant to do. They can sell the lots with or without a fence, and those can be put up by the individual home builders if they'd like. We don't have any requirement there.
So that statement means the existing houses around this property are welcome to put a fence in currently?
Correct.
Sure.
Yep. And then the last thing that was mentioned was the commenter had mentioned was an easement on the north side, but that again was the gap in the parcel that I had mentioned previously. There have been. It was quiet titled to the Mash family on January 24th of 2020. All the proper procedures were followed. Again, that is in the Planning Commission's packet, the outcomes of that. And really at this point, anything further would be a civil matter between the current property owner, which I believe is still the Mashes, until this is completed, and the aggrieved parties.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah.
That I piled that on you there.
No, don't worry about it. That's
We have one other email, and in looking at that, this raises some concerns about power lines and infrastructure disturbance and so forth, and I think we just have to default to the power department and city engineer for that. Is that not correct? We don't have the authority to impose anything like that.
That's correct. And if I'm correct, that was one of the messages from Lisa. Is that correct? That you had mentioned some of the power
It was
questions?
funny, and a couple other residents had the
Yes.
same question. So
Yeah, and we got a response back from I believe it was Kelly.
Yep.
That stated that they at this time don't have any intention on burying that line. I don't understand power speak, but apparently it's a hefty
It's very
line,
expensive,
and
That-
it's
that's
expensive.
really the reason.
Yeah.
Is it's extremely expensive
Yeah,
to bury.
and I
power
think
lines.
it's a pretty
well,
thick line.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, it's
know.
it's a big
and
capacity.
in that communication, one of the things that was stated that it's expensive to bury power lines, and so it thought while it wasn't developed, it'd be less expensive. But that was clarified that now power lines are done through boring, and then you don't have to worry about what's on top of the surface, so you can finish it and change that situation later if so needed.
Okay.
So, can I ask a question about public comment?
Please do.
It was my understanding, and I could be completely wrong, but Mr. Paul Mash showed me a letter that he said he sent to the commission about a week and a half ago, and has that already been submitted to the record, or should we comment on it?
I have not seen it.
What?
He emailed him and his sister Kathleen, I believe. Sorry, they're probably watching. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Said they sent a letter and had too concerned about the irrigation ditch and fencing.
Yeah,
Is that,
we have
sure.
a copy of it. That's,
Yeah,
that's
I
in
think
here.
it was in the packet actually.
Yeah, it is. It's in the packet.
Right.
Yeah.
so it's been addressed without discussing it? What's the proper procedure?
So it has been. Long story short, is that has been addressed by the applicant, I believe, in that they decided to purchase out the water shares from the applicants have decided to purchase the water shares from that.
So that probably answers the other question that I had, is why
Sure.
there was no ditch company approval. If the ditch is, if the water rights are being purchased, and then the ditch is essentially being abandoned. Is that
I
correct?
believe so, yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
and they would still have to work through those things, and that would still go through engineering as well. They would be
Yeah.
verifying. those
Typically,
things.
I would have expected to see a ditch company approval as part of the conditions, and I didn't see that, so that
Okay.
explains why that's not there then.
Yeah.
I was looking for that as well, and in there it stated they're going to abandon the existing irrigation stub located at the southeast
Okay.
corner of the property. I'm assuming that's why then.
That will
And then
do
the-
that then.
And then the other concern was about a vinyl fence between the existing property on the northeast corner and the new property. But I think our discussion has stated that no fencing is required at this point because when it's built and owned, then fencing can be discussed at that point.
That's correct. Yep.
We don't have fencing requirements that we can impose anyway.
Right.
Mr.
I mean,
Muller,
we have.
I have a question.
I'm sorry. Who was this?
Ned.
Okay, go ahead.
Commissioner Hacker. So you mentioned that Mash Farm Circle met all of the street requirement sizes for the city. So will that be a city street?
Yes, that will be a city street. Murray City does not allow subdividing on private streets at all. So any subdivision like this would have to be on a public street.
Which means it could or could not be an HOA and gated?
It could not be gated. No, it's a public street.
Just for clarification about the fencing discussion, in our access and public improvement, there's some statement about it being double frontage along 4800 South, which requires by our land use ordinance solid masonry, buffered wall, regulation sidewalks and strips. All that doesn't apply until it's developed, or what is?
So I apologize, I misspoke there. So any interior lots and things that are not on double fronted lots, fencing requirements do not apply. However, on a couple of the lots, I will show them.
There's 3.
Yeah, there
3, 10,
are
and 9.
technically, just the ones that double front onto 4800 South. So you have lot
3, 10, and 9. Is that what it is?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, 3, 10, and 9. So not 10 is weird. It's actually triple fronted.
Yeah.
So
So we need bigger fence there.
yeah, bigger.
Well, is
30
wire.
feet.
Is 3 considered triple fronted because on the east side there's a driveway, or is that a private driveway?
Well, it's fronted on 4800 Mash Farm Circle
And
on both sides. So it would be triple fronted. Either way, corner lots get a little bit more complex because you have site triangle issues, and you can't have fencing in the front yard area too high. So these, it would have to be masonry from the front of the building or without outside of those things over to the adjacent to the next lot. Lot 9, however, is the one we were most concerned about. That one will need to have that solid masonry wall along here, along that south portion. Additionally, the applicants have stated that they are going to be putting in a wall on this one, on this rear property line as well for the lady that lives here.
House.
Yeah, the existing home. And same thing applies to lot 3. This would at some point become a solid masonry wall here, but not until we kind of know more about what that house actually looks like.
so my question about lot 3 and lot 4 being on a private driveway, does that make them require?
Private driveway.
There's no private driveway.
There's no private drive.
There's 2 families living here that currently have a driveway.
There's a driveway here. That wouldn't apply.
That wouldn't apply.
No,
Okay, thank you for
because
the
that's an
clarification.
easement. What she's speaking about specifically is
Okay,
here.
sure, the existing
this is a
homes there.
flag lot here. This would be fenced. Would need to be worked out between the 2 property owners.
And then the 9 that's on 4800 South, that property where you were just speaking about the masonry wall. And teach me more about the process. When does that occur? Now or after they develop the house there?
Jared?
My notion is that wall would go in as part of the improvements. When we talked about improvements for the project that are going to be put in by the developer, that's the kind of improvement that would go in at the time that the road gets put in, because you don't want to stick the homeowner or the builder that buys that with an improvement like that. The retaining walls at the back side of the existing home, those would go in.
Sorry, I asked that question intentionally because I know there will be neighbors watching this process and reporting to you if the process occurs appropriately. So might have that answer on a speaker, on a mic. 'Cause that's a good answer.
I'll just reiterate that it will most. Our inkling is that it will be done as part of the public improvements portion, at least on lot 9. because of the expense of that. We don't think that the applicants would want to put that back onto the home builder. So we would expect that to be done, at least for lot 9, and probably the existing home would need to be done as part of the public improvements process.
Mr. Chairman, Zach, I don't really love the word inkling. It's not really legally bounding, I guess. So I guess to me it feels like either, because that can be an expensive wall.
Yes.
And so I guess from a city standpoint, and maybe this is what Lisa's asking, is like, I know like lot 10 and lot 3, it may depend on the direction the house is facing for where that wall would be, correct?
Correct.
And so that one, we can't necessarily, because we don't have a design for either of the houses on those lots, we actually can't say the masonry wall has to go this far.
Right.
Because they may put the masonry wall, and that may limit the ability to build a house like someone would want on those two.
Correct.
However, lot 9, I mean, I guess they still could, because they could put their driveway out onto 48th, correct?
Because of the grade of the property, they can't.
No.
Probably, okay.
No.
So I guess that's my question is, if we know that we have to do it,
Yeah, it's
why
a
don't,
condition. Condition number 7 is the applicant shall follow the requirements of section 16.16.140 regarding double
lots.
fronted lots.
okay, and so
That
that's,
would be addressed with staff.
Okay, so that
with
is the fence
properties
right
that
there.
are double.
Yes, that's requiring the
So
fence.
it is in the conditions
Regardless of when it goes in, it will go in. But my intent, what Jared and I think, I believe, is that it would be done at the
development stage.
Yeah,
the development stage, but it will go in.
yeah.
So
that's what I
the
saw,
important point.
and so I just wanted to make sure, like Lisa, that, it's not something that the developer, can just say, well, oh, that's not me, that's the homeowner now all of a sudden.
And, we do have the developer here. If it's all right, I would like to
certainly.
ask the applicant if he would care to add any information. You've been with us the entire evening, Mr. Beers, and so hopefully your brain is still in the right direction. And is there anything you would like to add based on the discussion you've just heard?
Yes, I'm going to defer to our engineer, David Jenkins, and he'll address the precast fencing that will go along 48.
Great.
Hi, how you doing?
Great, Mr. Jenkins, please enlighten us.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Great. This is a good way to do this. This is exciting times. We're going to be doing this for a while with other jurisdictions too. So my name is David Jenkins with Ensign Engineering, principal here, and been working with the developers on this property. And it's a unique piece of property and a great location. It does have its challenges from an engineering design standpoint. So I appreciate all the comments and questions that you've asked. So basically, all of the improvements that will go in, the developer will put all the streets, roads in. The fencing will be along 4800, and it will be a precast concrete fence, particularly on lot 9. The issue is on lot 10 and lot 3 with the side triangle. So we do have, particularly in lot 3, a problem with the road on one side and then the flag lot on the other, and still maintaining that triangular shape that we need to have. So we'll work that out with city staff on what that fence will do. So I hope that answers that question.
It does. Is there anything else that we needed to have clarified from your point of view?
No, we've read through all of the conditions. Most of them have already been done. We were actually scheduled, as you know, on 2 weeks ago to be on the planning commission meeting, and we already had seen all the staff comments prior to that. So basically, we're done and ready to go. All those comments have been taken care of, with exception of a few.
Okay, so the eight conditions, the 8 extended conditions, you folks accept and plan to complete.
Yes.
Okay, great.
We do.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question then here?
Sure, Lisa.
I'm asking the question for myself, and I know other residents have been discussing this, so there might be questions flooding in later, so let's just answer it. Do you mind telling us a little bit about where the retaining walls will be required?
I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. What did you say again, please? Or could you have Zach repeat it?
No, I apologize. Everyone says I'm hard to understand. I apologize. It's my accent. My teenage boy voice that cracks. Do you mind explaining to us where the retaining walls will be?
Where the what again?
The retaining walls.
Oh, the retaining wall. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so there's a retaining wall along the backside of the existing home, and then that is right next to Bash Farms. Yes, thank you, Zach, for doing that. That is a retaining wall right there, and then there will be a fence on top of that to separate the existing home rear yard with the street there. So that's one retaining wall there. There is going to be some retaining walls along lot 4 and lot 1. There will be a retaining wall in there, and there's actually the rear yard of lot 1 and 2. There's a short retaining wall. You see that dark line? That's retaining wall 2. To make the grades work, what we've done is created building envelopes within the setback, and a lot of the homes will have walkout basements type homes. So, and then in lot 9 will actually, because that's going uphill, that home would be similar to where you would have the garage would be the lower level. Then you would step up and have the main level above the garage, and then the second story would be actually one that could then have a walk. Your rear yard would walk out, so it would be like a 2.5 story house with the first level being the basement or being the garage.
The 8-car
That
garage.
makes sense.
Would there be a retaining wall needed?
So
on lot
there's a
9?
retaining wall along that lot. Right, there's no retaining wall there, but there is along the lot line between the house and lot 9.
Okay.
Not right there. Well, there's a little retaining wall there too. So Zach, if you see between lot 8 and 9, there's a retaining wall.
Go toward
And
the
then there's
existing
a
house.
retaining wall between lot 9 and the existing house.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay. Over
Right
here
in there.
somewhere.
Nice job,
Yes.
Vanna.
So there are some unique challenges to this, but nothing I've not seen before or dealt with on other developments that we've done around the valley, and particularly with sloping lots.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Any other questions from commission members online or here in City Hall?
No.
All right. Thank you. We'll let you back away for a second.
Okay,
And
thank you.
what I'd like to do right now is open this agenda item up for public comment and see if Susan has received any additional public comment since we opened the meeting.
Yes, I've received a few. And some of these I believe may have been answered previously, but I'll just, do you want me to just read them all and somebody take
Okay.
notes? Okay. All right, this is from Adrian Kundick. How did the MASH get a quiet title without notifying adjacent owner? We were told by a realtor they were going to fence all the area. If there are not restrictions, we could have anything in the development. We were also told by Murray City Water that the elevation on the property would change and there would be a 3 to 5 foot retaining on the north side of the development. We are not on 4800 South, but thought we would have a fence along our side. The next one from Chicago Louis. As of today, no one has contacted Paul about purchasing his water shares. The next one is from Terry Haberkost. Will each house need to seek approval with an open hearing? This is from Catherine Prin. We just noticed on the plans for the development that the irrigation line being planned to go back to Paul Mash's house is only 4 inches. The existing line is 6 inches. The existing line that parallels 4800 South is also a 6-inch line. A 4-inch line would be much more susceptible to plugging up with debris, which could be a very costly repair. And then the last one is a little lengthy, so bear with me. I'll try to paraphrase if I can. This is from Bridget Tim. I am the owner at 615 East, 4800 South, next to the proposed development. It is incorrectly listed that my uncle Stephen Nash owns this property, but from tax records you can see it's mine. I have some concerns about a few things. First, the traffic and speeding on 4800 South. There's been numerous accidents. There's no bike lane, shortage of parking along the street. No one adheres to the posted 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. And it can take 10 to 15 minutes for her to back out of her driveway due to the traffic and people speeding. And that also her and some of her neighbors have been as a result of that, have been in an accident, which was not their fault. The addition of 10 houses means exponentially more cars and traffic in the area, which is already overstressed with in a busy residential area.
Especially if you have an 8-car garage.
Let's see. And should those issues be fully addressed with detailed plans prior to getting approval? And then the crosswalk and flashing light on 4800 South to Atwood Boulevard is insufficient. People frequently run through the school zones, don't stop for pedestrians, run through the flashing red light. Further, both the intersection at 4800 South and Van Winkle and State Street are terribly backed up, and there's also locations of these are also locations of numerous accidents. She goes on to express more concern about the traffic. And then the plan development looks like it will be very nice, but we only got a blurry photocopy saying this is preliminary and final approval. I would love to have more information about the time frame for this, the size of houses in comparison to the property, and let's see whether the homes will be 1 or 2 story. And then she does address whether these are single-family dwellings without the possibility of rental attachments, and also will there be apartments, mother-in-law apartments, ADUs, and short-term rentals, such as Airbnbs.
Okay.
She talks about the increased traffic and noise as a result, and it infringing on their privacy. There needs to be sufficient barrier between the development and the adjacent properties, more along the lines of a wall and trees, a substantial fence line. And then she notes a 6-foot vinyl fence does not provide adequate buffering and frankly is quite ugly. They are concerned about a reflective white fence or a chain link fence and possibly the reflection from it. Let's see, facing the west, and it possibly damaging the landscaping. Lastly, it wants to reiterate the concerns of her parents and uncle when in regards to the irrigation ditch. The driveway cannot be eroded as a result of new construction, and we get no benefit from construction and should not have property damage as a result. However, as Paul Mash does own water shares, it is necessary that this be addressed. Has anyone from Tanner Ditch been contacted? Let's see then, as well as concerns, she talks about the Paul Mash. There's 3 trees along the property line, which would hopefully be preserved. Thank you for your time to review and address these issues concerning the increased traffic, privacy, sound, and landscape concerns, irrigation questions, and they request more specific details about the scope of project and the nature of the buildings.
Okay. Honestly, I think I can address 99% of those. I tried to take as complete notes as I could. On the Kundick comment about the quiet title, that was handled by attorneys. That is not under the purvey of the Planning Commission. That is entirely a legal matter. I don't know if it's, I would assume it's a civil legal matter, a land use matter.
I will just interrupt real
Please.
quick about it. We specifically requested that be resolved before we even bring it to you,
Okay.
because we
it
knew
has been.
that was going to be an issue.
Okay.
So that was specifically stated, and we wouldn't. They were ready to make this application, I think, back in December, and that was one of the concerns. We needed to have that addressed and concerned. So they have been working on this for some time, and you are correct that it is a civil matter and not in our purview.
Okay. Thank you, Zach. As far as fences go, we don't have any requirements for fences other than what's been stated about the block walls or the masonry walls where they're appropriate. I think that's been addressed adequately.
Mr. Chair, I thought I have not been told anything about fencing, but other neighbors have said they've had discussions with the developer about fencing.
Well, but what I'm saying is we do not have any standards that we can impose. Those are things that will happen, and I guess those can be negotiated. I'm not really sure, but we cannot impose any standards. I'm only talking about what we can do tonight.
I agree with you, and I'm not arguing with you. I'm just wanting it to be stated that's why it's coming up. Apparently, there has been just some discussion out there. It's informal at this point and not binding.
Right. And the homeowners need to realize that those discussions are not binding on this commission. So that's important. We will not be held to the private discussions between neighbors and developers. Each house will not need individual approval. Am I correct, Zach?
That's correct. No, it's
as long as they meet the
permitted use.
regulations of an R18 dwelling, then they should sail through. The irrigation line, that irrigation right. Irrigation lines and water rights are a concern of mine. We've heard conflicting comments tonight. I would not be opposed to adding a condition that ditch company approval needs to be secured before this could go forward. And if the water rights are sold and there is no ditch, then that's fine. That's easy to deal with. But I am concerned that there's conflicting information there. As far as traffic, speeding, parking, the impact of something like this, 4800 South is a collector road. It's very busy, and the impacts are already there. 10 homes are not going to significantly impact what goes on that street at all. The crosswalk at Atwood and more traffic and cars, they're a reality, and we're not traffic engineers. We can't legislate traffic conditions and changes to this. That's the city engineer's recommendation.
100% accurate, everything you said. I agree with. It might be an appropriate time to also point out that this applicant's requesting to maintain the zoning of R18, which other applicants might not request of this area, which could increase traffic greater.
Oh, absolutely. If R18 is the lowest impact use that you could have on this property by far, absolutely. And as far as being eligible for ADUs and things of those nature, anything that is allowed in an R18 zone would apply to this. It is an R18 subdivision, private subdivision. Home style, size, and so forth, that's all regulated by the zoning. And again, fence regulations, I think we've addressed that quite a bit. Did I hit the points?
You did a very good job. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the questions that were asked are questions, they're all great questions, but in this particular application today, because there are no home designs submitted as part of it, and often we do have one developer that's doing it. They show the home designs. It's a whole development wide, and we can see and get a flavor for the colors and the garages and the designs and all those different things, that would address many of the concerns that people have. This applicant is not for that. This is for the lot, for the development, for the cul-de-sac, making sure that it's set up. But in terms of what each of the 10 homes are going to look like, we can show the building envelopes, but that's it. And you can rest assured that every one of these homes will fit within those envelopes, and they'll make sure they're not 100 feet tall, but beyond what they're going to look like, and the colors and the design and the garages and all those things is going to be based on who builds the lot. Right.
Well, you can say with confidence too, it'll look like a house in an R18 zone in Murray.
Yeah,
it'll meet the requirements.
It has to. Exactly, because it has to. It has to. But it's. I mean, there could be 10 ADUs in here. Yeah, but every one of them.
There can.
That's possible.
Yes, that was.
But every one of them would have to come through the same process, and at that point, there would be a permitting, the same like we see with the other 4 ADUs that we saw earlier today. And so I think it's important that citizens do understand that all. I mean, there could be 10 ADUs. But there may not be.
Right.
But there won't be duplexes, there won't be twin homes, there won't be multifamily, all those other things that could add significantly to the traffic will not be here. What will be here is single-family homes subject to all the conditions that a normal R18 would be.
Correct. All right. Let's see. Did I close the public comment period? I do not believe I have.
To be honest, I have no idea.
I don't believe I have. We were addressing concerns brought up in public comment. So with that,
yes.
Does Susan have any more before we close it?
Okay. Yeah, and you know what? The quiet title, we're not attorneys, and we had nothing to do with that. That was a private matter handled by civil attorneys, and I don't have any information at all. No, because he wasn't involved either. It's a private property matter. Yeah.
That was basically it.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay, so this is Angie Wild. I realize the quiet title is a civil matter, but you should be concerned because if we overturn it, which we are planning to do, there will not be enough easement for the planned development.
Oh, I guess we'll.
Can I speak to that?
So, yes.
Jared's ready. His phone's boiling.
The civil matter issue still stands. It's a civil matter. This subdivision goes forward. If they're not able to get an injunction from a judge about that quiet title and the approvals are given and they're able to get it recorded, it can still be challenged or whatever, and if they're able to overturn it, that should actually not be a condition or a concern of the commission's. It's still a civil matter. Overturning it is not something we can anticipate and say, well, let's wait and see if if you succeed in the overturning of the quiet title. We should absolutely not be worried about that.
Thank you, Jared. Okay, with that, I will close the public comment period on this agenda item and ask the applicant if he has any additional information that you'd like to provide based on the public comment we had and comments by the commission.
Yes, this is Kent Beers, and I would like to make one comment regarding the irrigation. So we have had communications with Paul Mash regarding the irrigation line. He has proposed that we purchase his shares. We anticipate once we have ownership of the property and approval of the subdivision, if that occurs, that we would then make him an offer. He certainly wouldn't be bound to accept our offer. We've also contacted a water broker who is interested in those shares as well. So we could make him an offer, water broker. He's free to sell them to whoever he wants. But we do not propose at this time now, given the information that has come forward, that his sister and her husband do not want the irrigation line running next to their driveway. We do not intend to pursue that any further. That was simply to try and accommodate Paul when he did want the irrigation. And then regarding Paul's trees, we have told Paul it looks like maybe 1 or 2 of those trees, there's 3 trees, they might be actually onto the property, the subject property. We will try everything we possibly can to preserve his trees, or as many of them as we can. However, if we can't, we can't, because as noted earlier, the lot number 4 is one of the more shallow lots. And so giving up any square footage to accommodate his trees could put in jeopardy that lot, that it just wouldn't be a buildable lot. So we'll try and work with him as much as we can. But again, a lot of this, we were waiting until we see if the subdivision is approved. And then once we have ownership, then we can start more proper negotiations.
Sure. When it comes to water rights, I still I cannot make a motion to amend conditions or that because I'm the chairman. But if someone on the commission would see fit to add a condition that if ditch company approval is appropriate, that be obtained, that qualifies it, and if purchasing the water shares makes that go away, then that's fine, then it has been addressed. But I'm always leery about when ditches are discontinued, dead-ended, or changed significantly. I think it's important that water rights are respected further downstream and that too. So I would hope that someone would see fit to add that.
Mr. Chair, I would like to add that, and I also can see Mr. Ney writing, so I'm assuming he's interested in adding that condition as well.
We'll be at that point in just a minute then. Thank you. With that, any
I have a question about that, and I don't understand the water rights maybe enough, but certainly we can put in a condition that says, yes, you should have ditch approval.
Right.
But
That's
whose responsibility ultimately is it? It seems to me like it's a developer and the current water right owners to ensure, because I imagine the developer can't just go in and cut the water rights off of other people.
That's why I want...
I guess that's, I understand the condition, but I guess I'm trying to understand like what teeth is behind it. Like if the developer just says, I don't.
Well, the ditch company is owned by all of the people that have water rights.
Right.
Even if you're 5 miles downstream,
exactly.
you're an owner, and so they have to approve any changes or modifications
to the ditch. And does the ditch run through? I guess I missed it. Does the ditch run through the current property, or
I don't know
the proposed? And so
it's right along the property line, predominantly in the property that's being purchased.
Where is the ditch on here, Zach? Do you know?
I think it's about. You can kind of see those little thingies.
Right.
I believe it is right there, and comes
the
right
irrigation.
around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the condition. Obviously, I think I'm just wondering, if it's something like if there's any teeth in the condition.
That's what I said, if it's appropriate.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I want to know. Is I know sometimes we want to put things on public record so that people know that we're concerned, and obviously we're doing that through this discussion. But by imposing a condition that says, that have to be receive ditch approval. What if the ditch says, we don't want to do that? And now all of a sudden it's a condition. Does that then hold up the development from doing that? Because if it doesn't directly impact the ditch, then should the ditch company feel an obligation to give approval or approval? I guess that's the question. I would hate to have the developer held up by something that is only quasi-related. I guess that's my concern.
But water rights holders further downstream would say that they're severely impacted and they have legal right to.
And that's why I want to know is from a city standpoint, like if they are impacted, then certainly it should be a hard condition.
Also, just a real quick, this could help clear up a little bit as well. Susan did notify me because I just don't remember. But the ditch company did receive notice of this meeting.
Okay.
So they are aware of this meeting, and they are very active when there is
They come a lot.
Yeah, they do. And so when they have a concern, they are often I haven't received a call from them, and I'm sure one of us would have mentioned if we had received a call.
What does that
out of
mean
concern.
around the condition, though, that we're proposing? Don't propose it because it's okay, propose it because it'll be...
Because if the ditch company was notified, chose not to come, chose not to express anything, I mean, certainly the developer can go out and say, hey, would you give us permission? And they're like, yeah, it doesn't affect us at all, and then they have it. I mean, I guess, again, I have no problem putting the condition on there,
Right.
but I don't want this condition to be one that can't be met because it has no impact and the ditch company doesn't want to authorize something that they can't control.
And in light of that information, I'm fine. It's up to commission members if they want to add something like that or not. I'm fine either way. I'm not going to.
My concern is more of
additional information.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Chairman Markham. My concern is more along the lines of us putting a condition on there that can't be met, and then therefore, the city, the developer coming back and saying, you've harmed my ability to do my.
So Commissioner Woodbury, I think you have a very legitimate discussion. I'd like to have further discussion because the condition was suggested because of needs of the residents in the area, and it hasn't been settled yet, but your points are very good points.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more to address it because I don't understand it enough, but I'm just concerned about putting conditions that would, potentially impact the project if they can't or couldn't be met. So.
And for the record, I actually completely agree with Scott on that matter.
And if I could ask Mr. Jenkins or Mr. Beers to kind of maybe speak to that a little bit more. We just, unfortunately, that was just something that I had anticipated the engineer to be going through. And I mean, in his review, it does say to abandon in letter L, abandon the existing irrigation stub located at the southeast corner of the project. But on top of that, what's the impact to potentially you guys by getting irrigation?
And Zach, that where the key word is stub. If it's just a stub, a lateral stub to the MASH property, then obviously that's not going to be used anymore. That's water rights they could sell. Then the main line continues on, I guess. So, see, this again, I apologize if I opened up a hornet's nest of
questions.
Okay. This
water
is
rights
information that I wasn't privy to. So.
Well,
I think it's very good, Chairman Markham. I think it is appropriate to discuss and make sure it's on here, and I think it's something that the developer should be aware of and cognizant of the impact on water rights.
Mr. Woodbury, can you explain to me a little, or Commissioner Woodbury, can you explain to me a little bit more? Because I hear us saying if we put a condition in here, it's not appropriate for the developer because it could prevent him from this three acres of land being developed for 10 houses. But then I also hear us saying if we don't put a condition in there, could the developer say, sorry, Mr. Mash, you're out, and just cut off the line and be done with them? I think or by putting a condition in there, we're saying you could develop 9 pieces of property until you solve the problem with this one property. Yeah. I don't know.
I guess my point was I don't feel like that we have the ability or need to put a condition for this whole development going forward based on water rights the ditch, because the ditch company was notified, had the opportunity to express something, and they didn't do that. And so I would hate to put something on here to require them to get a formal permission from the ditch company in order for the project to go forward, and then have that not be obtained because maybe the ditch company doesn't want to enter into a formal agreement when it doesn't really matter.
But I kind of wonder, though, if that's not really a big deal. We're making a big deal, and it isn't. I mean, it's $1 million project, over $1 million project, so it might not be a big deal for them to contact the ditch company, but it might be a big deal to Mr. Mash to lose his water rights.
I think that we're talking in hypotheticals right here, and honestly, number 1 says that the Murray City engineer requirements are that they would abandon the existing irrigation stub located at the southeast corner of the project. So it would be with the engineer, right, that this would need to be worked out, and this is what he's recommended, and we're complying, and the developer is complying with what the engineer has already laid out. So we're going down a path that really, honestly, we don't even need to continue down. It's listed already in the conditions. The developers would have to meet these conditions set out and be approved by the city engineer. as he already has said.
think-
So I
I'm
don't
just saying
know
we
how
don't
much
need
we
one.
need to debate or
Sure.
add conditions
And
or,
I do
or talk about these hypotheticals because it's contained within the conditions that we already have been presented.
I think we have addressed it adequately in that, and so this will be resolved by either a motion, someone making a motion, it not carrying or not getting a second, or no motion being made. And I am at this point, I'm open for a motion concerning this agenda item.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we grant preliminary and final subdivision approval for the Mash Farm Estate subdivision on the 2 properties addressed 585 East 4800 South, subject to the existing conditions 1 through 8.
Can I second that motion?
I will second that motion.
Okay, you know what, Travis? Lisa beat you to it by just a couple of seconds, so I will
Get faster internet,
honor her
Travis.
second. I have a motion by Scott Woodbury, a second by Lisa Mulkevich, that the Planning Commission grant preliminary and final subdivision approval for the Mash Farm Estates subdivision on the 2 properties addressed 585 East, 4800 South, subject to the following 8 conditions presented to us this evening. Call for vote, please.
Mr. Woodbury?
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich?
Yes.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Mr. Nay?
Yes.
And Chairman Markham.
Yes. Thank you. That was a very educational discussion, and I appreciate everybody's input and opinion. And I think that this is going to be a quality project for the city, and it will enhance the surrounding area. All right, moving on to agenda item number 12.
Thank you very much.
This is a zone map amendment for property address 6450 and 6468 South, 1300 East. Dwayne Rasmussen is the applicant. He is, seeking, the applicant would like to amend the zoning map and change from R18 low-density single-family to R16 low-density single-family. The request is supported by the future land use map and the goals and objectives of the general plan. And Susan.
Yeah, thank you. Great intro there, Chairman Markham. The applicant, Dwayne Rasmussen, on behalf of Castlewood Development, has applied for a zone map amendment for 2 properties located at 6450, 6468 South on 1300 East. The properties are located on the corner of Matthew Avenue and 1300 East. The 2 properties are total combined equal 20,000 square feet, 20,037 square feet. Each lot is currently meets the R18 zoning regulations as far as the area. The intent for this is if the zone map amendment is ultimately approved by the City Council, that the applicant would probably reapply for a subdivision of 3 lots, which would be big enough for 3 lots. The difference between the R18 and the R16 zones they're almost identical. The uses are the same. Residential, single-family dwellings, public, quasi-public schools, libraries, churches, utilities, etc. Multifamily is not allowed in either of the zones. Another difference between the R18 and the R16 is obviously the lot size and setbacks are lesser for R16. And another point that's different between the 2 is the R18 has a maximum height of 35 feet. The R16 is 30 feet. So they're both, as the map shows, in the R18 zone. This area for the majority is all low-density residential, R18, as shown in the existing zoning, and also in the future land use map calls for low-density residential. When our general plan was updated 3 years ago, one of the changes that was made that was quite significant was at that point in time we allowed R16 to be categorized, if I can use that term, as low density, where previously it was a medium density. And so, as you can see as part of our general plan page, that low-density residential has several different corresponding zones, anywhere from A1 to R210. The R16 is noted with low to medium density. The two properties are existing single-family dwellings. I don't believe they are currently occupied. The one that is closer to 1300 East is a historical home. It was built in 1899. It's on the local registry, not the national registry. However, that does not prohibit demolition of the home. We just have to go through that process for approval to maintain historical records. And I've notified our history advisory specialist for the city. She's aware of this, and I'm sure she'll be in contact with them to try to get photos or whatever material she may want. So with that, in reviewing this application, staff is recommending that we send a positive recommendation to the City Council, and that another public hearing would subsequently be held with the City Council. Planning Commission is advisory to the City Council, so the Planning Commission's duty tonight is to simply make a recommendation of approval or not for this. Okay. As a side note, we did mail about 60 notices out to surrounding residents. I did get a few phone calls. No opposition. They were just mainly curious as to what was the intent for it.
Okay. Thank you, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions of staff from commission members here or online? Okay. Is the applicant with us online? Mr. Rasmussen, I saw you earlier, but we may have outlasted you.
Yeah, he was.
He was here, yeah. He hung around for all the drama a few minutes ago. See if he's there somewhere.
Yeah, he's there.
There he is. And he needs to be
there
there
we go. Can you
there
hear me
you are.
now?
Yes, please. Is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Rasmussen?
You know, I'd like to add this. I think this is marvelous technology for a guy who grew up with black and white TV and 3 channels that I could tune to. I am absolutely overwhelmed at your ability to transfer this to the public and allow us to participate. I appreciate it. I think Susan has done a great job of explaining it. I won't hold you up any longer unless you have any questions for me.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, pretty straightforward. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight, and we'll proceed and see if we can get some resolution here.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I'll open this up for public comment, this agenda item. See if we have anyone watching online that cares to submit an email. We'll give a couple of minutes for that.
I have a procedural question.
Sure.
So we'll give 3 minutes for public comment. Can I be excused for a moment?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Go.
Maintain your distance, though.
I know.
Can you actually do it in 3 minutes? That's pretty impressive.
We didn't.
Yeah, Mary, just help your friend. Like, I was trying to explain.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I'm like, I know we had to get hypotheticals because she asks a lot. I'm sorry.
Zach, you're not muted.
I know I'm not.
Okay.
I know.
Just want you to know.
That's why I was like trying to answer the question, but
I don't see any emails coming through, and there hasn't been any.
this is hypothetical. You should have done it earlier.
Just a couple inquiries previously, like I was saying, but no opposition or concerns, basically.
Which is why if the ditch company didn't come,
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to put a condition on there. If they were notified, they come to everything.
They do.
Well, and he said, the developer said that they offered to buy
Yeah.
shares.
See, my condition, and it was my error. I didn't realize
Because it was
stub.
number 11.
Yeah.
Stub is a private line.
Yep.
If they want to cut it, they can do that, and he can sell his water shares, and the line goes on. That was my error.
It's
I
fine.
opened a hornet's nest.
It's a good discussion because it's one of those gray areas, like, because technically the landowner, the water, the ditch people. It's
You know
not.
what?
It's not
Water-
the city.
When I worked for Murray City Water Department and that, we had to go to a water rights attorney's office up in Salt Lake. It was in the Utah One Center or whatever.
Mhm.
His office was as big as this freaking room right here. It was unbelievable.
I'm sure it charges.
Just millions of dollars all the time.
Oh, I'm sure.
It blew me away. That's
sure.
how complicated it
Yeah,
was.
it is. It is.
And his father started the firm, and now he's following his.
Wow.
It's a big deal. You gotta.
It is. It is.
All right.
Which is why, if the ditch company cared, they would have come.
Well, I think we're back. And Susan, any public comment at all?
None.
All right. With that, I'll close the public comment portion and bring it back up here for any additional discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I will.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
go ahead, Scott.
No, you go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Marshall.
All right. All I was gonna
Marshall
say,
Mathers.
I walk past this property almost daily.
Uh-huh.
It needs some love. It sounds like this project is going to give it the opportunity to get some of the love it needs. I'll be sad to see the various chickens and turkeys disappear off of the front property, but I'd like to make a motion, please, to forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for the requested amendments to the zoning map designation of the properties located at 6450 and 6468 South 1300 East from R18 Single Family Low Density Residential to R16 Single Family Low Density Residential.
Okay. I have a motion by Travis. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Ned? I have a motion by Travis Ney and a second by Ned Hacker to have the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the zoning map designation of the property located at 6450 and 6468 South 1300 East from R18 Single Family Low Density Residential to R16 Single Family Low Density Residential. Call for vote, please.
Okay. Commissioner Woodbury,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner McCavich,
Yes.
Commissioner Ney,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
and Chairman Markham.
Yes. Thank you. Good luck with your project, Mr. Rasmussen. Thanks for hanging in there with us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Okay. Our next agenda item is the next two. Are we going to handle these together? Or
No.
separate? Okay.
Separate.
All right. I tried.
Right? Give it a shot.
All right. Jared, do you want to introduce these text amendment to land use number 5198 in the TOD zone?
I would love to. Thank you.
And can you text Bryant to see if he's still alive? We
Brian,
lost
we're
him.
looking for you.
So-
He's there.
Oh, he's back. He just had to take off his tie.
Welcome back, Brian. So the first of these two text amendments on the agenda tonight, item 13, this is a land use ordinance text amendment regarding home occupations. 1724
we're gonna do that
is our. Yep, that's item 13.
Sorry.
That's okay. 1724 is where we regulate home occupations in the zoning code, and I just wanted to point out. I'll be brief with my explanation, as brief as I can, and let you ask questions if you have them. A few years ago, a couple of years ago now, home occupations were the way we regulate them was changed by the state legislature. We had to look at how we define home occupations and whether those home occupations have an impact or have no impact. And to make the long story short, we were basically, as municipalities, barred from charging any fees for any home occupation business license that does not have an impact on the neighborhood that it's in. So home occupations, and I should have been clear from the get-go, home occupation business is any business that's run from a residence in a single-family or multifamily zone. We do allow them. So the attorney's office and the planning office work together on a series of changes to this ordinance, and I'm just going to go through them. We define home occupations generally. We just did that. Professional operations from your home, and you're all familiar with those. And then we clearly define in the new change here major home occupations versus minor home occupations. And the purpose in doing that is so that we can distinguish who is going to have to be who's going to have to be charged for license and who is not. Minor home occupations are intended to be those home occupations that do not have an impact according to state legislature, so we know that we don't have to charge for them, or that we shouldn't be charging for them. Now, there's a purpose behind that too, and that is that what we want to do as a city, as an organization, is not license those folks. To date, we've been licensing all of them, renewing their licenses, processing all those applications, dealing with the renewals and the problems, and it can take a lot of staff time to do that, and we're not allowed by state code to charge for those. So the state has determined that they don't have an impact in the neighborhoods, and has determined that they're not required to have licenses even really from cities if they don't want them, if they're truly no impact. So we're saying as a city, if they're truly no impact, we would rather not license them then, unless they decide that they would like to be licensed, in which case we can say, and this is the next part of it, what this basically says is if you are a city, if you're a business owner and you want to run your business out of your home and you're a no impact or a minor home occupation, and you tell us that we're telling you we're not going to license you, unless you tell us that you want to license us and you want to be licensed, then you're opting in and we're going to charge you a fee.
Yeah.
So we're changing the code to be able to say, if you want a license, but you're no impact under state code.
And sometimes it's beneficial for people to have a license when they solicit business.
Exactly.
They can show that they're a legitimate business.
And there's plenty of those that want that, and they're fine with paying fees. State code says we can't charge them. It makes it difficult to run renewals. It gets complicated for lots of reasons. They forget to renew on time, and so they're a zero fee license, but they forget to renew in April when they're supposed to. They come talk to us in July and say, well, I want to renew my free license. Well, it's not free anymore because you have penalty fees, because we've been tracking it and sending you out notices every month for 3 months now. And that takes staff time and effort, and it costs the city money, and we don't even get to charge you $50 for that license.
Yeah.
And I'm being pretty informal, so I'm probably freaking Bryant out, but I'm just saying, we've referred to it as the opt-in, and that's why we set up the why we set up the definitions the way we did, and why this fee section has been modified the way you're seeing it there. Another change that was proposed, and I should have been a little clearer on this one, but we did want to clear up some things about on-site employees and off-site employees. Home occupations are allowed to have off-site employees, but those off-site employees, we don't want them coming and going from the business location at the home in the neighborhood all the time. On the other hand, if they have employees that there's 4 or 5 of them and they don't have any reason to ever be there, it doesn't really impact that neighborhood. So we want to be clear about who's allowed to be there, et cetera. And then we needed to clean up some language about what constitutes that first bullet point here, on-site employees. What constitutes an on-site employee? So we defined that as employees or volunteers who don't reside in the home. You can have one of those without crossing into a different category. The fourth part of this dealt with the use and storage of trailers. And you remember this came up a lot of times with major home occupations, especially with landscape contractors. So it basically gives 6 requirements. Trailers can be open or enclosed, but they can't be more than 20 feet long. Materials and equipment can't be stored outside that trailer. So if you have a bunch of lawnmowers and you're a landscape contractor and you want to keep those lawnmowers in the back of your trailer and it's located appropriately, we don't care, but we don't want the lawnmowers all over the driveway, et cetera. They have to be kept in a side or rear yard, behind a fence, or be garaged. The trailer has to be well maintained, so it can't be a piece of junk sitting in the driveway. And the area for parking the trailer needs to be paved. We don't want it on landscaping. That language is more detailed than that, and it's in your packet in the red underline. But it can't be in a landscape area or an area that's reserved for landscaping. So you don't get to let your landscaping die in your front yard and say, I'm going to pave that, and just pull my trailer in front of that house. Right. That's not allowed either. And then the site plan, if you're going to have a trailer as part of your major home occupation, you have to show us a site plan about where it's going to be located when we do the license. And those are the major changes. There are a few just little kind of minor things that we wanted to clean up also as a part of this. Business vehicles have to park off the street, except for deliveries that are coming and going, perhaps. We clarified the language about disruptions that aren't allowed to include things like excessive traffic and noise, so that there's no question about that from people that get cited for it. Home occupation businesses need to be, it's funny you have to be this clear, but we needed to be specific and say, it's not a home occupation business if it's your Airbnb unit that you use most of the time that way, but every once in a while you come and operate in the city. It's got to be your primary residence. And then home occupations we wanted to be clear that when they get referred to the Planning Commission, a major home occupation that needs to come to you, that the purpose of that referral is to go over the conditions that could be reasonably imposed. Just wanted to be really clear that that was the case. Before we wrap up talking about this and let you ask some questions, I do want to be clear also that this is being proposed in conjunction with a couple of other changes to the business license regulations. Most of those regulations are in a title that you guys don't deal with, Title V. But Bryant has worked for, how long did you guys work on this, Bryant? I don't know, months.
Since his parents.
It represents a big portion of Bryant's life, working on Title V changes.
Did he just fall off his chair?
They're in
He
Prague.
unmuted himself.
Yeah, it was months.
It was months, and
Yeah.
and so anyway, there's a whole other section of changes that you won't see that go along with these that are the Title V counterparts to these changes and others that have been kind of coming for a long time, to do with home occupations and a few other things in business licensing. But your intersection as the Planning Commission with business licensing changes that we were making is principally with these home occupation standards. So we are recommending that these changes be forwarded to the council with a recommendation of approval.
Okay.
You have any questions for me? Sorry, I know it's a lot.
Do we need a public comment period on this item?
We do.
I have a question, Jared.
Yeah.
So if a minor business decides that they want to get a license, does that preclude them from letting their license expire?
No, it just puts them in the same category as anybody else for their license, and they're already in it. Even if they're a free license, even if they're a business who doesn't choose to be licensed under state code, then it does, because we're not holding license. If we have a license for them, even if we don't charge a fee for it, and they let that license expire, then they got to reapply again. Or if they let that license, they don't renew on time, then there's a fee that applies, a penalty that applies, even if it was a free license. That was part of the confusing thing with it. So that's why we wanted to just make it clear that they needed to opt into getting a license and say, well, I do want a license even though I'm small enough to not have one under your code.
Jared.
I don't know if that answers your question, Ned. Is that?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. If they opt to get a license, they're paying for it, and for some reason they decide that they don't need to have a license for some particular reason and let it expire.
And they could just close it or let it expire.
I've got a question on the trailers that you can park on the side of your house.
Yeah.
Do they all have to, does there have to be a gate in front of the trailer?
Yes.
I'm not quite clear on that.
I think
I don't. Let me see.
Number
So
3.
it says behind a fence.
or garage.
It says placed in the side.
That's what it says.
The rear yard behind a fence or
It's-
garage in a private
Its
property.
storage area, would be behind a fence or in a garage. So yes,
So you do have to have a gate if you have a trailer in your driveway?
yeah, I would guess if you're going to get it in and out of the fence. It says fence, but if you're going to move it in and out behind that fence is going to be a gate, right? So yeah.
Along those lines of trailers, now trailers, what about, other equipment associated with that job? Like if someone owns a food truck, can they park, where does that park?
The food trucks would mostly be over a weight limit that we allow for home occupations.
Okay.
So this language was specifically for trailers. Other equipment like that is not allowed to be part of a home occupation.
And that's what I wanted to make sure is that this is exclusively to trailers.
Exclusive to trailers.
Number 2 is two is sub of the trailers, says materials equipment shall not be stored outside of the trailer.
Yeah.
So a construction handyman can't store something in his garage and then rotate it out.
Yeah, they're not supposed to use their garages for storage. Other facilities on the property for home occupations are not supposed to be used in conjunction with the business. So if you're a handyman or if you're a contractor and you want to run a home occupation business, essentially the code does not allow you to keep all of your stuff,
right?
Your Bobcat and your packs full of shovels and your bags full of concrete.
So we're saying everything associated with
That's so
that.
irritating.
Yeah.
So irritating.
We're saying everything associated with that business has to be contained within that trailer.
In that trailer, or it needs to be somewhere
or
else.
truck,
You run your
or
office
stored
from
somewhere
your
else. But
Sue, I detect a conflict of interest.
got a 20
I mean,
foot trailer.
to me, honestly, I think it's kind of silly. I mean, I understand, but it's like, You know, if you're a plumber and you know, you go buy some stuff. I mean, I don't know. I just think it's hard to control and police, and so it just seems like it's a guideline. Hey, don't store it outside, but it's. I mean, people put it in their garage all the time, and because they transfer from their garage to their trailer or different things. And to me, I guess I don't. If it's in the garage or in a shed, and those things are all part of the ordinances, I guess I don't understand why someone can't use a shed in their backyard to store things associated with their business.
I'll tell you why.
I figured you would.
If I can be real for just a second.
Yeah.
Plenty of people do that, and we don't hear about it. But if your stuff has filled up, if your stuff for your business has filled up your garage and has filled up your sheds and is spilling over onto the driveway, and the neighbors are calling and complaining, we want a code. So, Melinda, stop listening to me right now. We want a code that says you can't do that, so we can act on it. If we have a code that says you can use those areas of your home for your business, businesses have a habit of taking over a property in a home occupation. There are too many bad actors.
The spillover. Like if someone packs their garage from floor to ceiling with stuff associated with their business and their garage is closed and I can't see it when I drive by,
right?
It doesn't impact me negatively when in my neighborhood.
And we don't hear from you, and so we don't go after that home occupation.
Right. So to me, I guess the thing is it can't be stored in open areas or can't be stored, you know. But I mean, it's fine. It is what it is. I think it. Anyway.
I think I hear where you're coming from.
You don't have a throwdown?
No,
because we can't. Because with social distancing, we can't.
We really can't.
No,
we've seen a lot of
Otherwise,
business licensing over the years. I've seen a lot of bad actors.
That's fine.
And I've seen a lot of people that operate like 95% within the rules, and they do every once in a while. I got to put this stuff in the garage. We're not supposed to. But whatever. It's not going to bother anybody, and we don't hear about it. And honestly, we don't care. We only care when it's impacting the neighborhood. So. That's our purpose for the code, is to keep people basically in line by giving them a hard line and knowing that, you know, when that gets crossed, we have some recourse if we need it.
So to continue that conversation, roll your eyes. I know it's silly, but if you are not licensed, these rules still apply to you.
Well, you couldn't do this. You couldn't do work that would involve a trailer at your house as a home occupation and not get a license. That would, by definition, you're having an impact. Okay. Having the.
But in the past, if you got a license in the past, though, you couldn't have your trailer. So this cleans up one of the biggest beefs I've had with this line of code all along, because these people that come through the city doing the right thing, and we say, no, you got to go get an off-site storage facility for your trailer. This cleans that up, and I think that's the biggest win in everything here.
I agree. I think it's awesome. I love that we have the trailers in there. I just wanted to make sure that we had considered all the different things associated with it. And so if I bought a tiny food truck that was within the weight limit, I could store it there.
We'll make a special exception.
Okay.
It strikes a really great balance between what the home occupation needs and the things that we were restricting kind of unnecessarily for them, but still having parameters of, we're not just going to let you take over your whole house. And it's really, you guys solved most of the key issues that we've been running into about major home occupations.
Somewhere out in cyberspace, Andrea, the landscaper that you guys might remember from a couple of years ago, is watching to see if she's going to be okay to stop leasing somewhere to keep her trailer.
Keep her trailer in her side yard.
Yep.
I just want to say I don't have a conflict of interest because I'm not operating a business anymore.
I was teasing, Sue. I'm sorry.
Any other questions for me?
I appreciate you adding the additional information on traffic and things, because I mean, especially when it comes to dance studios and those type of things,
it often comes up.
It often comes up. So I think it's just really it's a nice ordinance. It really helps a lot. So
I can't take a lot of credit for this. I'm inheriting it from Bryant and Jim.
Oh, obviously the language is Bryant's.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously.
Which is why he can afford to be in Prague.
All right. With that, we will open this item up for public comment. We'll take a couple of minutes and see if we have folks that are still awake out there and coherent.
We can't take public comment after 15
All right. So while this is open for public comment, Jared, you're going to have to show me where it says you have to have your trailer behind a gate.
All right.
Number 3.
Like I said, Ned, I apologize. I'm not as
The trailer may be placed in the side, rear yard.
Where are you?
Behind a fence. 3. 3.
3 where?
In the ordinance.
A couple slides.
Well,
Under M.
M trailers, number 3.
Right there.
under M.
M as in,
Here it is.
I want to open it.
Yep.
All right.
as in med hacker. So, yep.
Yeah, that comma kind of modifies things.
Because it say you can place, but it still says, it kind of says placed in the side. So that's, you can place it in the side or the rear yard behind a fence. So I can place it on the side by you using a comma.
That'll get you.
Yep, there you go.
And I can't even.
It just can't be in the front yard, but it could be in the side.
I can't really speak to the intent of that either because, like I said, I'm inheriting a lot of this.
Well, Bryant went to law school to determine where a comma should be placed, so what's the
Look at 'em working
precedence on this?
frantically.
Side or rear yard behind a fence or
No
grass
side
property not within the.
or rear yard. You got to have that comma there.
Inside or rear yard.
So I can put it in the side.
Okay.
But the side yard, by definition, is your house, back, front line of the home, back. So.
Okay, Susan, any public comment? Okay, we're going to close the public comment period, and now we can bring it back up here for the discussion.
Thank you, Ned. Good clarification.
That didn't accomplish anything.
I feel okay about that.
Any further discussion?
And I was just being obnoxious.
Okay, if seeing none, I'm open for a motion.
Go to the motion page. I don't.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the proposed text amendment to Chapter 17.24, home occupations as reviewed in the staff report and provided in the attachment.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Scott Woodbury, a second by Marion Patterson, that the commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the proposed text amendments to Chapter 17.24, home occupations, as reviewed in the staff report and provided in the attachment.
Mr. Woodbury.
Yep.
Ms. Patterson.
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Hacker.
Yes.
Mr. Nay.
Yes.
Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, our last agenda item, number 14. It is a text amendment for land use number 5198 in the TOD zone. And I assume Jared is handling this.
I am. That's why I didn't move.
This is an exciting one. I was really intrigued by this.
Okay. Well, let me just run through some slides here to show you all a little bit, and we can talk about this. So this text amendment is to the TOD zone, adding a land use category that's previously been excluded. This is just for public that's watching. I know you all remember where the TOD zone is, but I'm going to show you anyway. We have 3 mixed-use zones in the city. One of them is the TOD zone at the north end, around the Fire Clay Murray North Station, and then this is for reference the mixed-use zone and our MCCD zone. Our MCCD zone is about 100 acres. Our TOD zone is about 70 acres. This is a little zoomed in. So this is the TOD area, the Fire Clay area. You can see let's see, the ones that you referenced the easiest right now. These are the newest section of those metro apartments, and the other section that we put in a few years ago, Main Street right here. The TOD zone has a lot of different uses that are allowed and some that are prohibited. This specific land use, 5198, came up as Habitat for Humanity and Salt Lake County Housing. We're talking to the city about possibly purchasing land from Salt Lake County that's owned right here along 4500 South and Main Street.
It's a horrible eyesore.
It's been that way for a while, and we'll I want to show you a couple of maps in a moment, but sorry, I'm going to go back one. But this land, this is where 4500 South goes down the hill. As soon as you cross Main Street, it gets real steep as an embankment. Hasn't been a lot of interest in the property, but Habitat for Humanity was looking for a new place to put their restore facility that we talked about in the staff report. And then they would also, along with that restore facility, put their offices above that and then build a number of units of affordable housing on that same site, making a kind of a horizontal mixed-use development out of that property. as a planning staff, we're supportive of the idea. It did require, if we wanted to support that idea, a small change to the code. I can kind of sum that up really easily right here. 5100 is the wholesale trade category, and all of those trades are allowed except for those that are specifically accepted right here. 5198 was one of those trades, disallowed. So the change that we've proposed, and it has to do with lumber and construction materials. We've proposed adding a category for 5198 instead of just removing it from this section. The way this is worded, it's specifically accepted. So rather than just crossing it out, that alone would allow 5198, but we want to propose that it be allowed with some specificity as its own category. Lumber and construction materials, wholesale and resale in buildings with footprints no greater than 30,000 square feet, with no outdoor storage, with docks and delivery and staging areas that are screened from public streets, rather than simply allowing the use and not having any standards for it. Those things are all based on the information that we've had from Habitat for Humanity, and Mike Brodsky's online from Hamlet Development watching tonight. He's been working for Habitat in working this through and helping me understand what they need and what would work, et cetera, to hopefully guide them through an entitlement project eventually after this is approved, if it gets approved as a text amendment. So we can ask Mike in a minute if he wants to weigh in here. But this kind of language would still accommodate the restore facility and would allow them. This is just a concept sort of elevation that we have, a rendering. I didn't want to use too much of the site planning that we have seen some concepts for, because it's not really, we don't know what will happen if we change, and so it's more appropriate to talk about sort of the big picture item. This is the project site, as you can see. That is the property we're talking about, and I included this mapping because one of the other aspects of this that makes us less concerned about opening up that zoning a little bit is that there is not a lot of land left in that TOD zoning. Of that 70 acres, there's not a lot of acreage left. So you're not rolling the dice in a big way. This is a property that Habitat is interested in, that Salt Lake County Housing is interested in, and that's the project you'd get there. It's not like Anderson Lumber is beating down our door to try to locate there. So it's not a risk. We feel like it would accommodate a really good project that would give us some really needed affordable housing in an area where it's really the most appropriate, with really good access to tracks, really good access to buses from tracks and anywhere else they might need to go, and other services that are in the area as well. Restore, as you saw in your packets, is used for Habitat to kind of facilitate projects and sell product a little cheaper and get those things going. You're right across the street from the Desert Industries right here as well. So there's a lot of services in the area that are pertinent. You got tracks right here real close. The only thing we're missing is groceries, and we're working on that. So.
Well, it also cleans up an eyesore, as I stated, too. It's a win on many levels.
Yeah. Well, we do feel like it's the same way, Chairman Markham, and we'd like to see the Planning Commission move it forward with a recommendation of approval to the City Council. And I'll take any questions if you have.
Okay, no questions right now. We'll open it up for public comment. Mr. Brodsky, would you care to comment?
Can I unmute?
Thank you. Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted. You're good.
Okay, thank you. Jared, thank you very much. I'm simply a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity on this. With my familiarity with this particular area, they asked me to come in and help them work through both the entitlement and the due diligence process on their facility. This is a joint venture between Habitat and Humanity and Housing Connect. The community will comprise both the facility for Habitat and 100 affordable housing homes that are being built by Housing Connect. Right now, it's a joint venture between the two of them, and they are under contract with Salt Lake County to purchase the property. We're going through a pretty extensive investigation. We are almost completing our phase 1 environmental assessment. We expect to begin the phase 2 shortly. I have an expectation that we're going to find some cleanup necessary on the site based on what I've cleaned up on the surrounding sites. I also don't think it will be terribly extensive. And Jared, I do have one last question, and thank you, by the way, for your help on this. Why am I always the last item on the agenda?
It does seem to work out that way. I would like to point out that I do not schedule the agenda items, so.
We will not
Thank you.
name who does.
Are there any questions I might be able to answer?
Any questions?
I've got a question. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely, Sue.
When you talk about affordable housing units, what specifically are you projecting with that? Is that going to be an apartment building? Is that going to be single family homes, or, you know, a townhome type thing? Or what are you looking at for that?
So we have a fairly small site, and so this is expected to be 100 stacked apartments. I can't answer your questions relative to what kind of income restrictions or qualifications, but
And that's fine.
Okay.
I didn't expect that. When you say 100 apartments, how many stories are we looking at? Do you expect? Is that a 3 or 4 story?
I think it's a podium building with parking underneath and surface parking, and I believe that it's a 3-story building.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, and it sounds like we did have a
public hearing,
a communication, so we'll let Susan read that in.
Actually, this one is from Jeremy Runia, Director of Real Estate with Housing Connect, and he basically just says, Housing Connect fully supports the proposed text amendment. Housing Connect, along with our co-partner Salt Lake Valley Habitat for Humanity, anticipate developing the land located within the TOD overlay zone, which will provide needed services and housing for the citizens of Marty.
Okay.
That is it. That's
Great.
the only-
Thank you. Mr. Brodsky, anything else?
I have nothing else to add, other than it's always a pleasure to work with Murray City.
Thanks for sticking it out tonight. This is close to a record for us, so we appreciate your patience. All right.
It was a good experience. Thank you.
With that, I'll close the public comment period and bring it up here for more discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the proposed text amendment to Section 17.168.050 as reviewed in the staff report.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sue. I have a motion by Marion Patterson, a second by Sue Wilson, that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the proposed text amendment to Section 17.168.050 as reviewed in the staff report. Call for vote, please.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Mr. Ney?
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich?
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Any additional staff information tonight?
Two quick things. The next meeting that we do, April 16th, we have items for. We are planning to do that one with the orders that have come down completely electronically.
Okay.
So the next one that we do, there won't be the 4 of you here or 4 others here. We'll have everybody participate. We're planning to anyway, have everybody participate through Zoom meeting. So
Seems like it's worked. So.
if you struggle with any
Yeah.
facilities for that, Zach set this all up today with Bill and everybody, and just really appreciative of all the tech help and everything that we've gotten. And it's good on a night like this to have great commissioners to work for and to have good planners working with me too. So,
Jared, could I make a comment
Yeah.
regarding that?
please.
So the Wasatch Front Regional Council has had 3 major committee meetings electronically in March, and they were great. They were absolutely great, and they were short.
And if I can make a comment, make sure that you're careful on what is in the background when you have meetings. We have these all the time, when there's a guy in Atlanta who has a telescope focusing out his window, pointing down, and we always wonder what he's looking at. So be careful.
Do that.
So.
Well, thank you, everybody. That's all we have. Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jared. That was great.
Thanks.
Susan, Zach,
Thanks all.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
and
A
Brian.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good job.
Everyone.
We are adjourned.
You did that job.